Hello everyone, and welcome to the DxD Tales. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Issei was trained by Beerus, the god of destruction DBZ x DxD. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The God of Destruction's Whim. He fabric of reality shivered like disturbed water. Space itself fractured, creating a web of luminescent cracks against the night sky above Kuo Town. No human noticed. They rarely did. But in that moment, something fundamental changed in the underlying structure of the universe. A slender, purple figure with distinctly feline features emerged through the rift, yawning dramatically. His large, pointed ears twitched with irritation as he floated down toward the unfamiliar earth below. Behind him, a taller blue-skinned man with an elaborate white hairstyle and staff followed with a resigned expression. "Lord Beerus, I believe we may have overshot our intended destination," the blue attendant said, his voice melodious yet concerned. The cat-like deity scratched behind his ear, eyes half-lidded with perpetual boredom. This doesn't look like Universe 7. The food smells different, and the energy." He sniffed the air like a connoisseur sampling wine. "It tastes strange. Explain." Whis tapped his staff against nothing, producing a luminous display of cosmic pathways. "Most peculiar. It seems the dimensional anomaly we were investigating has connected with another realm entirely. Neither Universe 7 nor any of the 12 universes we know." His eyes widened slightly. "We appear to be in an entirely different cosmological system." Beerus's tail swished with sudden interest. After millions of years of existence, novelty was rare. Different cosmology, different gods. Indeed, I'm detecting numerous energy signatures that don't conform to Ki as we understand it. There's magic here, and something else. Divine power systems operating under different principles. The god of destruction grinned, revealing sharp fangs. "Well, now, that is interesting. Perhaps this detour won't be as boring as I feared." 17-year-old Issei sprinted down the empty street, chest heaving. He was late. Again. The street lamps illuminated his panicked expression as he clutched his school bag. "Stupid alarm," he gasped. "If I miss this makeup class, I'm definitely getting held back." The morning sun had barely crested the horizon, casting long shadows across Kuo Town. Most students wouldn't arrive at school for another 2 hours, but Issei's abysmal grades had earned him special early morning remediation. As he rounded a corner, something made him skid to a halt. An inexplicable sensation crawled up his spine, a pressure that made his ears pop and his skin prickle. It felt like standing too close to a high-voltage transformer, except the energy seemed to push against his very soul. "What the hell?" he muttered, turning slowly. The park across the street lay empty in the dim morning light. Empty, except for two bizarre figures standing by the fountain. One tall and blue with an ornate staff. The other shorter, purple, with unmistakably cat-like features. Both wore strange clothes unlike any fashion Issei had ever seen. Common sense told him to keep walking. Strange foreigners in costume weren't his problem. But something deeper, something instinctual, held him rooted to the spot. The cat being turned, golden eyes fixing directly on Issei with unsettling intensity. The teenager felt pinned like an insect under a magnifying glass. Without conscious decision, he found himself crossing the street toward them. Good morning," Issei offered weakly, stopping several meters away. The purple cat creature yawned, showing impressive fangs. "Is this what passes for a welcoming committee in this universe?" One scrawny human boy, "Lord Beerus," the blue figure admonished gently. "Not everyone can sense your divine presence. It's quite remarkable this young man noticed us at all." Issei blinked rapidly. Divine presence. Universe. These GUYS were next-level cosplayers are completely delusional. "Look, I'm just heading to school," Issei said, beginning to back away. "Have a nice day with your cosplay thing." The one called Beerus AP paired directly in front of him, not running or jumping, just instantly there. Issei yelped, stumbling backward. "What's your name, boy?" Beerus demanded, sniffing the air around Issei like a curious animal. Issei Hyodo." Beerus circled him, tail swishing. "There's something inside you, something dormant but powerful." His eyes narrowed. "Come look at this human." The blue Whis glided forward with unnatural grace. He pointed his staff toward Issei's chest. A gentle warmth spread through the teenager's body. "Oh my," Whis said, genuine surprise coloring his voice. "How fascinating. He houses a sealed entity of considerable power. Draconic in nature, if I'm not mistaken." "Dragon." Issei laughed nervously. "Look, I'm really late for." "Be quiet," Beerus commanded. And Issei's voice died in his throat. Not from fear, but from some invisible pressure that made speech impossible. "Whis, explain. This universe appears to function differently from ours." RFUL entities can be sealed into artifacts or even living beings. This young man carries something ancient within him, dormant but immensely powerful. Issei's mind reeled. These weren't cosplayers. Something was happening that defied every rational explanation. And somehow, it involved him. Beerus leaned closer, his face inches from Issei's. "Boy, have you ever experienced anything unusual? Moments of impossible strength, dreams of flying, a voice that isn't yours." The pressure eased, allowing Issei to speak. "I sometimes have dreams about flying. And fire. Lots of fire." He swallowed. "Who are you people? What's happening to me?" "I am Beerus, god of destruction," the cat being declared casually, as if announcing the weather. "This is my attendant, Whis. We're not from your universe." Under normal circumstances, Issei would have laughed, but the impossible way they moved, the otherworldly pressure emanating from them, he found himself believing. "God of destruction," he repeated weakly. "My job is to destroy planets, civilizations, sometimes entire solar systems," Beerus explained, examining his claws. "It maintains cosmic balance. Quite boring after a few million years, frankly." Issei's knees weakened. "Are you here to destroy Earth?" Beerus snorted. "If I were, we wouldn't be having this conversation." "No, we arrived by accident. But now I'm curious." He ked Issei's chest with one clawed finger. "You're interesting. There's potential in you that's been completely untapped." "What a waste." Whis cleared his throat. "Lord Beerus, perhaps we should explain what we sense within him." "Fine." Beerus crossed his arms. "Boy, you're hosting something powerful. A dragon, according to Whis. It's sleeping, but even dormant, its energy is notable." Issei looked down at his own chest. "Inside me, a dragon, sealed in what appears to be a sacred artifact that has merged with your soul," Whis clarified. "Quite ingenious, actually. The energy signature suggests it's been with your bloodline for generations, waiting for a compatible host." A strange warmth bloomed in Issei's left arm. For as long as he could remember, he'd occasionally felt it, during nightmares, moments of extreme stress. Or sometimes for no reason at all. He'd always dismissed it as poor circulation. "Can you?" Issei hesitated, afraid to ask yet unable to stop himself. "Can you wake it up?" Beerus's eyes glittered with sudden interest. "Wake it up? You're not afraid of what might happen?" Issei thought about his life. His embarrassingly average grades, his lack of athletic ability, his non-existent love life. Something within him, perhaps the very thing they were discussing, pushed him forward. "I want to know," he said with surprising firmness. "If there's something inside me, I deserve to know what it is." Beerus exchanged a look with Whis, a silent communication passing between them. Then the god of destruction grinned, revealing those disconcerting fangs again. "I was getting bored anyway," Beerus declared. "Very well, Issei Hyodo. I'll help you wake your dragon. And if you prove worthy, perhaps I'll even train you." "Train me," Issei repeated. "Like martial arts." Beerus laughed, a sound both amused and menacing. "No, foolish human. I'll teach you destruction. The power to unmake anything you touch." He leaned closer. "But first, let's see if you survive meeting your dragon." Without warning, Beerus pressed his palm against Issei's forehead. Pain exploded behind the teenager's eyes, white-hot and all-consuming. He might have screamed, he couldn't tell. The world dissolved into crimson light and unbearable heat. Issei found himself floating in darkness. No, not darkness. An endless crimson void that pulsed like a heartbeat. He looked down at his body, surprised to see himself intact and apparently unharmed. "Where am I?" he called out, his voice echoing strangely. "So, someone finally comes to visit." The voice resonated no, just in Issei's ears but through his entire being. It was ancient, powerful, and unmistakably inhuman. Slowly, he turned toward its source. Massive green eyes glowed in the crimson darkness, each larger than Issei himself. As his vision adjusted, he made out an enormous draconic form, scales red as fresh blood, a body that seemed to stretch into infinity. The creature was chained with countless glowing restraints that wound around its limbs and neck. IAMDDRAIG, the Red Dragon Emperor, the heavenly dragon WHO stole the principle of domination from God. WHO are you, tiny vessel, to disturb my slumber? Issei should have been terrified. Instead, he felt an inexplicable sense of recognition, like reuniting with a childhood friend whose face he'd forgotten but whose presence remained familiar. I'm Issei Hyodo, he answered, surprised by the steadiness in his voice. Apparently, you're living inside me. The dragon's rumbling laugh shook the void. Living? No. Imprisoned. Sealed. My consciousness bound to the sacred gear within your left arm. Generation after generation of hosts, most too weak to ever hear my voice. Sacred gear. Is that what they meant by an artifact? Yes. Humans have many names for them. Tools created by the biblical God, each housing different powers. Yours is boosted gear, my prison and your inheritance. Issei digested this information, strangely calm despite its impossibility. If it's a prison, why haven't you tried to escape? The dragon's eyes narrowed. WHO says I haven't. But the seal is powerful, designed by God himself. Besides, the enormous head tilted slightly. There are advantages to having a host. Symbiosis, you might call it. I lend you my power. You give me agency in the world. Lend me your power, Issei repeated, excitement building. What kind of power? The power to double your strength every 10 seconds, potentially without limit. The power that once challenged gods and devils alike. DxD's massive form shifted, chains rattling. But power comes at a price, little host. Few human bodies can withstand the strain. Most of my previous wielders died young, consumed by ambition or battle. The warning should have deterred him. Instead, Issei felt a growing determination. I'm willing to take that risk. Are you? And what would you do with such power? Wealth, women, revenge. Issei opened his mouth, then closed it. What would he do with power? Before today, his greatest ambition had been to someday touch a girl's breasts. But standing before this ancient being, such desires seemed embarrassingly small. I don't know yet, he admitted honestly. But I want to find out what I'm capable of. I'm tired of being ordinary. The dragon's laughter rumbled again, softer this time. At least you're honest. Most come to me with grand declarations of justice or conquest. The enormous eyes studied him intently. I sense something unusual about you, Issei Hyodo. You were brought here by external means, by an entity of immense destructive power. A god of destruction, Issei confirmed. Beerus. He says he's from another universe. DxD's entire demeanor changed. The dragon's body tensed, chains pulling taut. A god of destruction. Here, for the first time, Issei heard something like concern in the dragon's voice. Such beings exist outside our cosmology. They belong to a different system of divine hierarchy entirely. You know about them. I am ancient, little host. I have heard whispers of parallel cosmic systems, universes. Redestruction and creation are governed by dedicated deities rather than the complex pantheons of our reality. If such a being has taken interest in you, the dragon paused. Either great fortune or terrible doom awaits you. He offered to train me, Issei said. After we woke you up. Did he now? DxD seemed to consider this a dangerous proposal. Destruction gods do not typically take students. They destroy. It is their nature and purpose. I want to try, Issei insisted. Will you help me? Can we work together? The massive dragon studied him silently for what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, DxD nodded his enormous head. Very well, Issei Hyodo. I will lend you my power. But remember, the sacred gear responds to your will and emotions. Your determination, your desire, your very heart will dictate how much of my strength you can access. The crimson void began to pulse more rapidly around them. Issei felt a building pressure, as if he were deep underwater. Go now. Return to your world. Call upon me when you need my power. Simply will the sacred gear to manifest and speak the words. What words? Issei asked as the void began to dissolve around him. Boosted gear. Issei gasped, his eyes flying open as he returned to consciousness. He was lying on the grass in the park, Beerus and Whis standing over him with expressions of mild interest. 3 minutes and 27 seconds, Whis noted, tapping his staff. Relatively quick for a first contact. Issei sat up slowly, his head spinning. I saw him. DxD, the Red Dragon Emperor. Beerus smirked. And did this Emperor have anything interesting to say? He knows about you, Issei said, surprised to see Beerus's eyebrows raise slightly. He called you a god of destruction and said you're from outside our cosmology. Impressive, Whis commented. This dragon entity possesses knowledge beyond the confines of its own universe. Beerus circled Issei, tail swishing thoughtfully. Can you access its power now? Issei remembered DxD's instructions. He closed his eyes, focusing on his left arm where he'd always felt that strange warmth. He envisioned power flowing through it, taking physical form. Boosted gear, he called out. Light flashed, and a sensation like an electrical current ran up his arm. When he opened his eyes, his left arm was encased in a red gauntlet that extended from his fingers to his elbow. It was primarily crimson with golden accents and a large green jewel embedded in the back of his hand. Whoa, Issei breathed, flexing his fingers. The gauntlet moved as naturally as his own skin. Beerus reached out, tapping the gauntlet with one claw. Interesting construction. Not quite physical, not quite energy. It's beautiful, Whis observed. The craftsmanship is exquisite, even by divine standards. Issei stared at the transformed arm, feeling the power humming beneath the surface. DxD said it can double my power every 10 seconds. Double. Beerus's ears perked up. Starting from what baseline, and to what upper limit? I don't know, Issei admitted. He just said, potentially without limit. A slow, predatory smile spread across Beerus's face. Without limit. Now that is intriguing. He stepped closer, his golden eyes gleaming with sudden interest. Tell me, Issei Hyodo, how would you like to become strong? Truly strong. Issei met the deity's gaze. More than anything, not just any strength, Beerus continued, circling him. The strength to challenge gods. To remake worlds. To stand as an equal to beings who have existed for millions of years. The teenager swallowed. Is that possible? With that dragon's power as a foundation in my training. Beerus tapped his chin thoughtfully. It's not impossible. Your potential ceiling is significant. Whis cleared his throat. Lord Beerus, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm bored, Whis, Beerus complained. We're stuck in this strange universe for who knows how long. I might as well have something to occupy my time. He fixed Issei with that unnerving stare again. Besides, I haven't had a student in. How long has it been? Approximately 75,000 years, my lord, Whis supplied helpfully. And that ended rather poorly for the planet in question. Issei blanched. You destroyed a planet. The student got cocky. Beerus said dismissively. Challenged me before he was ready. A teachable moment for everyone else on that world, for the brief time they had left to contemplate it. Despite the casual reference to planetary genocide, Issei couldn't suppress his excitement. This was his chance to become something more than ordinary, to access the power DxD had described. I want to learn, he said firmly. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Beerus repeated, a dangerous edge to his voice. Be careful making such open-ended commitments to a destruction god, boy. My training will break you down to nothing before rebuilding you. It will hurt. You will curse my name. You may wish for death. But I'll get stronger. Beerus snorted. If you survive, unquestionably. Issei stood straighter, the gauntlet on his arm seeming to pulse in response to his determination. Then I accept. Good. Beerus clapped his hands together. We begin immediately. Whis, well, I'll need a training location where this boy's inevitable screaming won't disturb the locals. Whis sighed, tapping his staff. There's an uninhabited mountain range approximately 60 kilometers north of here. It should suffice. Wait, now, Issei protested. But I have school, and my parents will worry if I. Beerus flicked a finger against Issei's forehead, sending the teenager stumbling backward. Lesson 1. Priorities. If you're serious about becoming strong, trivial human concerns like school must become secondary. But think of it this way, Whis interjected more gently. With sufficient power and speed, you could attend training and still make it back for your human obligations. Time management is an essential skill for any warrior. Issei rubbed his forehead, considering this. So if I get fast enough, I could train with you and still live my normal life. Precisely, Whis confirmed. Fine, Issei agreed, but I need to at least call my parents with an excuse. 1 hour, Beerus declared. Settle your affairs, then meet us at the mountain Whis indicated. He pointed northward. We'll be waiting. Don't be late. But how am I supposed to? A flash of light interrupted him as both Beerus and Whis vanished, leaving Issei alone in the park with a magical dragon gauntlet on his arm and 1,000 questions swirling in his mind. The gauntlet pulsed, and Issei felt a faint connection to the dragon within. You've made a dangerous bargain, partner. You can talk to me outside that weird void, Issei whispered, looking around to make sure no one as watching him apparently talk to himself. Now that you've awakened the sacred gear, yes. Our connection will strengthen with time and use. There was a pause. Are you certain about this path? Gods of destruction are not known for their mercy or restraint. Issei looked down at the gleaming red gauntlet. No, but I'm certain about not wanting to be ordinary anymore. With a thought, he dispelled the sacred gear, watching as it dissolved into particles of red light. And something tells me this is my only chance. Then brace yourself, partner. Your life as you knew it ends today. Issei made a hasty call to his parents, concocting a story about a special school training camp for failing students. To his surprise, they accepted the explanation readily, seeming pleased. He was finally taking his education seriously. With that settled, he faced his next problem: how to reach a mountain range 60 kilometers away within an hour. The solution came from an unexpected quarter. I can help with that. DxD's voice rumbled in his mind. Summon the boosted gear again. Issei did so, the red gauntlet materializing around his arm once more. Now, focus on the jewel. Will it to activate? Boost, Issei said hesitantly. The green jewel flashed. Boost, DxD's voice announced, and Issei felt a surge of energy flood his system. His muscles tingled, his senses sharpened, and the world seemed to slow slightly around him. Whoa, he gasped. Is this double my normal strength? Yes. Wait 10 seconds. The jewel flashed again. Boost. Another wave of power, stronger than the first. Now you're 4 times your normal strength. Your speed is enhanced accordingly. How many times can I do this? With your current physical condition, perhaps 4 or 5 boosts before the strain becomes dangerous. With training, that limit will increase. Issei grinned. 4 times is enough. Which way was north again? With enhanced strength and speed from multiple boosts, Issei raced through the city outskirts and into the countryside. What should have been an impossible journey became merely challenging, though by the he spotted the mountain range in the distance. His body was screaming in protest. He arrived at the base of the tallest peak, gasping for breath, with barely 2 minutes to spare. Beerus and Whis were waiting. The former lounging on a floating rock, the latter standing serenely with his staff. 58 minutes, Whis noted. Not bad for a beginner. Issei collapsed onto his hands and knees, the boosted gear vanishing as his concentration broke. I made it. Barely, Beerus observed, yawning. And in what condition? Pathetic. Give me a break, Issei panted. I've never run 60 kilometers before. Clearly, Beerus floated down from his rock. Your baseline physical condition is abysmal. We'll have to fix that first before any real training can begin. Issei pushed himself up to his knees. So what's first? Learning to fly. Energy blasts. Beerus and Whis exchanged amused glances. First, Beerus said, you learn how not to die. Without warning, God of destruction flicked his finger toward Issei. A tiny purple spark flew from his claw, so small Issei could barely see it. When it touched the ground beside him, the resulting explosion sent him flying backward into a boulder. Lesson 2, Beerus called as Issei groaned in pain. Always be ready. Destruction doesn't announce itself. Issei staggered to his feet, his entire body aching. That was destruction energy. The tiniest fraction of it, Beerus confirmed. A demonstration. The power to unmake matter at its most fundamental level. And you're going to teach me that. Eventually. If you survive the basics. Beerus pointed to a flat area nearby. 20 laps around that mountain. Now, Issei's jaw dropped. The entire mountain. But that's 21 laps, Beerus amended. Questioning adds penalties. But 22. Issei clamped his mouth shut and summoned the boosted gear again. No, Beerus said sharply. Without your dragon's power, your base body needs to become stronger first. That's impossible. 23 laps. And no, it's not impossible. Difficult, painful, perhaps even dangerous, but not impossible. Beerus's expression turned serious. Destruction energy requires precise control. Your unenhanced body must be strong enough to channel it without disintegrating. Otherwise, the first time you attempt to use my techniques, you'll destroy yourself from the inside out. Quote, put that way, Issei couldn't argue. With a resigned sigh, he began running, his muscles already protesting from the earlier exertion. Whis watched him go, then turned to Beerus. Are you certain about this, my lord? Taking a human student is unprecedented. Beerus settled back onto his floating rock. There's something about that boy, Whis. A quality beyond the dragon he carries. Did you notice how quickly he adapted to the revelation? How readily he accepted the impossible? I did find his mental flexibility impressive, Whis admitted. Besides, Beerus continued, this universe has piqued my interest. So many different power systems coexisting. Gods, devils, fallen angels, and whatever else lurks in the shadows. It could be entertaining. And the fact that his sacred gear potentially allows for unlimited power multiplication has nothing to do with your decision. Whis asked innocently. Beerus's tail twitched. It's a factor, he conceded. Imagine it, Whis. Destruction energy, repeatedly doubled through the dragon's power. The theoretical upper limit is. He trailed off, a rare look of genuine excitement crossing his features. Concerning, Whis finished for him. Such power in mortal hands is exactly why he needs proper training, Beerus interrupted. Better he learns control from me than discovers such potential by accident. In the distance, Issei was already flagging, his pace slowing to a staggering walk less than a quarter of the way around the mountain. He won't make it through today's training, Whis observed. No, Beerus agreed, but he'll try. That's step one. The prediction proved accurate. By sunset, Issei had completed barely 3 laps around the mountain base. Every muscle burned, his lungs felt like they were filled with acid. And he could barely remain standing. When he finally collapsed, unable to take another step, Beerus appeared beside him. Pitiful, the deity observed. But expected. I'm sorry, Issei gasped, genuine tears of frustration welling in his eyes. I can't. Not yet, Beerus corrected. But you will. He prodded Issei with his foot. Same time tomorrow. 23 laps remain on your assignment. Issei somehow found the strength to lift his head. How? Get home. Whis stepped forward, tapping his staff. I'll return you this once. Tomorrow, you'll need to manage on your own. Light enveloped Issei, and in an instant, he found himself lying on his bed at home. His muscles spasmed with exhaustion, and he couldn't even summon the energy to marvel at the teleportation. Within moments, he was deeply, dreamlessly asleep. Morning came with an agony Issei had never experienced. Every movement sent jagged pain through his body. Getting DxD took nearly 30 minutes of careful, excruciating effort. Your body is adapting, DxD's voice commented as Issei limped down the stairs. The pain means growth. Easy for you to say, Issei muttered. You're not the one who feels like they've been hit by a truck. I can help ease the pain temporarily. Summon the boosted gear. Issei did so, and immediately felt a soothing warmth spread from the gauntlet through his arm and into his torso. The pain didn't disappear, but it receded to a manageable level. I'm accelerating your recovery. It's a basic function of DxD sacred gear, to support its wielder's survival. Thanks, Issei said gratefully. I never would have made it back to the mountain otherwise. Speaking of which, you should consider what this training truly means, partner. Gods of destruction don't teach their techniques lightly. There will be a price. Issei paused, halfway through chewing a piece of toast. What kind of price? I don't know. But such beings don't operate on human morality. Their perspective spans millions of years. Their concept of acceptable sacrifice might differ significantly from yours. The warning was concerning, but Issei had already committed. After forcing down more breakfast than he'd normally eat, his body demanded fuel. He set off for the mountain again, this time taking the train as far as it would go before running the rest of the way. To his surprise, he found his endurance significantly improved. Not miraculous, but noticeably better than the previous day. He reached the mountain base only 15 minutes late, finding Beerus napping on the same floating rock and was observing the local wildlife with fascination. "You're late," Beerus said without opening his eyes. "Sorry," Issei panted. "I'm still learning how to." 24 laps, Beerus interrupted. "Begin." Issei gritted his teeth and started running. Today was marginally better than yesterday. He completed nearly 7 laps before collapsing. His body once again pushed beyond its limits. "Better," Beerus acknowledged, appearing beside him. "Perhaps you're not entirely hopeless." "When," Issei gasped between labored breaths, "do I learn actual techniques?" "When you complete your assigned laps without collapsing," Beerus replied. "Until then, this is your training." The pattern continued for a week. Each day, Issei would force his aching body to the mountain. Each day, he would run until he couldn't move anymore. Each day, he would make a little more progress. By the 6th day, he managed 12 complete laps, still far short of the 24 now assigned, but a dramatic improvement over his initial performance. On the 8th day, something changed. Issei arrived at the mountain to find Beerus actually standing, waiting for him with an evaluative expression. "Today we try something different," the god of destruction announced. "Your physical condition has improved enough for basic ki training." Issei's exhaustion vanished, replaced by excitement. "Really? You're going to teach me energy techniques?" "Don't get ahead of yourself," Beerus cautioned. "We're starting with the abs. Olute basics, sensing and controlling your own life energy." For the next several hours, Beerus instructed Issei on meditation techniques designed to help him locate and manipulate his internal energy. It was frustratingly subtle work, requiring concentration that Issei struggled to maintain. "Feel the warmth at your core," Beerus directed, demonstrating by producing a small sphere of purple energy between his palms. "That's your life force, your ki. Imagine drawing it out, like water from a well." Issei sat cross-legged, eyes closed, focusing on the sensations within his body. He could feel something, a subtle warmth beneath his sternum, but every attempt to grasp it resulted in the feeling slipping away. "I can almost feel it," he said through gritted teeth. "But I can't seem to pull it out." "That's because you're trying too hard," Beerus observed. "He responds to intent, not force. Think of it as coaxing rather than demanding." Hours passed with minimal progress. By sunset, Issei had managed to produce only the faintest glow between his cupped hands, barely visible even in the growing darkness. "Pathetic," Beerus commented, though his tone lacked the sharp edge of earlier days. "But expected for a beginner. Continue practicing. Your running assignment remains in effect as well." Issei nodded, too tired to argue. As he prepared to make his journey home, Beerus stopped him with a raised hand. "There's one more thing," the deity said. "Whis has detected unusual energy signatures approaching this area. Supernatural entities native to this universe." Issei froze. "What kind of entities?" "Unknown," Beerus replied, "but they appear to be tracking unusual energy emissions." He grinned, showing those disconcerting fangs. "Our training sessions haven't exactly been subtle. Are they dangerous?" "To you, potentially. To me, not remotely." Beerus stretched lazily. "Consider it your first practical test. If something confronts you on your way home, defend yourself." "But I barely know any techniques." Issei protested. "How am I supposed to?" "You have the dragon," Beerus interrupted. "Use its power if necessary. Consider it a field evaluation of your current capabilities." Before Issei could object further, both Beerus and Whis vanished, leaving him alone on the mountainside as darkness fell. With a resigned sigh, he began the long journey home, every sense alert for danger. He was halfway to the nearest train station when he felt it, a prickling sensation on the back of his neck, like being watched. Issei stopped, scanning his surroundings. The country road was empty. bordered by dense forest on both sides. "Hello," he called out, immediately regretting the foolish action. If something dangerous was stalking him, announcing his awareness wasn't smart. Well, a feminine voice purred from the shadows. "What do we have here? A human out all alone at night?" A figure stepped onto the road, a young woman with long black hair and violet eyes. She might have been beautiful if not for the predatory smile that showed too many teeth. Most alarming, however, were the black feathered wings extending from her back. "Who are you?" Issei demanded, backing away slowly. "My name is Rainer," she said, walking toward him with unnatural grace. "But that doesn't matter to you, human. What matters is what you've been doing up in those mountains." Her eyes narrowed. "The energy we detected, it's unlike anything we've felt before. Dangerous, threatening." Issei's mind raced. This wasn't human. The wings made that obvious. Some kind of supernatural entity. Just as Beerus had warned. "I don't know what you're talking about," he lied. "I was just hiking." "Lying doesn't suit you," Rainer said, her smile widening. "We've been monitoring that area for days. Strange energy signatures. Power that doesn't belong to any faction we recognize." She extended her hand, and a spear of glowing pink light formed in her grip. "So I'll ask once. What are you? And what were you doing up there?" Issei's heart hammered against his ribs. This was real danger, the kind that threatened his life. Acting on instinct, he summoned the boosted gear, the red gauntlet materializing around his left arm in a flash of crimson light. Rainer's eyes widened. A sacred gear user. Interesting. That wasn't what we detected, but it certainly explains why you were chosen. Chosen, Issei repeated, confused. "It doesn't matter now," she said, raising the light spear. "You're too dangerous to leave alive, regardless of what else might be happening. Consider it an honor. You're being eliminated by a fallen angel." She hurled the spear directly at Issei's chest. Time seemed to slow as adrenaline flooded his system. With reflexes honed by a week of Beerus's brutal training, he managed to twist aside, not completely avoiding the attack, but turning a fatal strike into a glancing blow that tore through his shirt and left a burning gash along his ribs. Boost. DxD's voice rang out from the gauntlet, and power surged through Issei's body. The pain receded as enhanced strength filled his muscles. "Not bad," Rainer commented, forming another light spear. "Most humans can't dodge at all. But it won't save you. 3 more boosts and you might match her," DxD advised. "But can you survive that long?" Issei didn't answer, focusing instead on dodging as Rainer launched a barrage of light spears. His enhanced speed made evasion possible, but each movement reopened the wound on his side, sending fresh pain through his torso. Boost. The second surge of power came just as Issei stumbled, a light spear grazing his shoulder. "You're just delaying the inevitable," Rainer taunted, taking flight to gain a better angle of attack. "Whatever that gauntlet does, it won't save you." Issei needed a plan. Running wasn't an option. She could fly faster than he could run. Fighting directly wasn't feasible yet. She was too experienced, too powerful. That left. He remembered the key training from earlier. The tiny spark he'd managed to produce between his palms. It wasn't much, but perhaps. Boost. The third enhancement high. T is another light spear embedded itself in the ground by his feet. Issei cupped his hands, focusing desperately on the warmth he'd felt earlier. This time, rather than trying to force the energy out, he imagined it responding to his need, flowing naturally from his core into his palms. "What are you doing?" Rainer asked, momentarily hesitating. "Some kind of technique. It won't work, you're just a novice." "Maybe," Issei admitted, feeling energy beginning to gather between his hands. "But I have good teachers." Boost. The fourth enhancement flooded his system, and suddenly the energy in his palms expanded exponentially, forming a sphere of brilliant blue light. Rainer's eyes widened in alarm. "What is that?" "That's not a sacred gear technique." Issei didn't understand the mechanics of what was happening. But he felt the power, ready to be released. Acting on pure instinct, he thrust his hands forward, shouting the first thing that came to mind. Dragon shot. The sphere launched, head forward as a concentrated beam of blue-white energy, catching Rainer completely by surprise. She tried to dodge but was too slow. The beam struck her left wing, disintegrating the feathers and say. Ending her spiraling to the ground with a scream of pain. Issei stared at his hands in disbelief. Had he really just done that? Impressive improvisation, partner, DxD commented. You combi. Ned your nascent key control with my power. The result was effective. Raynor struggled to her feet, her left wing hanging useless and partially destroyed. Her beautiful face contorted with rage and pain. You, how dare you? A mere human. I'd leave if I were you, Issei suggested, trying to sound more confident than he felt. I don't want to kill you. The fallen angel's eyes blazed with hatred. This isn't over. I'll return with others. We'll find you, and we'll finish what? Her threat was cut short as a slender purple finger tapped her forehead from behind. Raynor froze mid-sentence, her eyes widening in terror as she sensed the being who had appeared without warning. Threatening my student? Beerus asked mildly. How discourteous. Who are you? Raynor stammered, instinctively trying to back away but finding herself unable to move. No one important, Beerus said with a dismissive wave. Just a passing god of destruction. He yawned, showing fangs. Your energy signature is interesting. Fallen angel, was it? A servant of the Christian god who fell from grace. How poetic. Lord Beerus, Issei began, relief flooding through him. I was handling the situation adequately. Beerus finished for him. Your technique was crude but effective. Combining the dragon's power with basic key control, creative. He turned his attention back to the terrified Raynor. As for you, please, she whispered. I didn't know he was under your protection. Spare me your excuses, Beerus interrupted. I'm not going to destroy you. Not today. Instead, you'll deliver a message to your superiors. Relief washed over Raynor's face. Anything. Tell them that Issei Hyodo is my student. Tell them that any interference with his training will be considered a direct challenge to me. Beerus's expression turned serious, the lazy demeanor vanishing. And tell them what happens when someone challenges a destruction god. To emphasize his point, Beerus extended one finger toward a nearby boulder. A tiny purple spark flew from his claw, and upon contact, the massive rock simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no fragmentation, it simply disappeared, leaving not even dust behind. Raynor's face drained of all color. I'll tell them. I swear it. Good. Beerus released whatever invisible hold he had on her. Now go, before I change my mind. The fallen angel didn't hesitate. With her one functioning wing and raw terror providing motivation, she launched herself into the sky and fled, disappearing into the distance within seconds. Beerus turned to Issei, who had collapsed to his knees, the adrenaline wearing off and pain returning in full force. Well, the deity demanded, what did you learn? Despite his exhaustion and injuries, Issei couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of being asked for a lesson summary after nearly dying. That I need a lot more training, he admitted. But also, that combining the boosted gear with key techniques creates something new. Beerus nodded approvingly. That's the first intelligent observation you've made. Yes, the dragon's power amplifies everything, including nascent key abilities. With proper training, the potential applications are significant. Whis appeared beside them, staff in hand. An enlightening field test, wouldn't you say, Lord Beerus? Indeed. Beerus crossed his arms. The boy shows promise. And now we've announced our presence to this world's supernatural community. That should make things more interesting. Was that wise? Whis asked. We know very little, about the political structure of this universe's divine hierarchy. That's precisely why it's interesting, Beerus countered. Besides, it was inevitable. Power attracts attention. Better to establish boundaries early. Issei struggled to his feet, wincing as fresh blood seeped from his wounds. What was she? A fallen angel, and she mentioned factions. Questions for another time, Beerus said dismissively. Your immediate concern should be not bleeding to death. He glanced at Whis. Can you? The blue attendant sighed. Very well. He tapped his staff against Issei's chest, and immediately the teenager's wounds closed, the pain vanishing as if it had never existed. Thanks, Issei said, genuinely grateful. That's amazing. Basic healing, Whis said modestly. Now, I suggest you return home. Tomorrow's training will be more intensive, given tonight's results. More intensive, Issei groaned. Is that even possible? Beerus's grin was downright terrifying. Oh, you have no idea. As Issei made his way home, escorted invisibly by Whis to ensure no further attacks, he reflected on how dramatically his life had changed in just over a week. From an ordinary, underiving high school student to the apprentice of a god of destruction, wielder of an ancient dragon's power, and now apparently a target for supernatural beings. It should have been overwhelming. Instead, he felt an unfamiliar sensation building in his chest, anticipation. For the first time in his life, Issei Hyodo had a purpose, a path to becoming something extraordinary. Be careful what you wish for, partner. DxD cautioned, sensing his thoughts. The path of power is rarely straight or safe. I know, Issei replied quietly. But I've made my choice. As if in response, the boosted gear manifested again. The green jewel glowing softly in the darkness. Then we walk it together. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Red Dragon, Destruction's Flame. 6 months transformed Issei Hyodo in ways that defied conventional understanding. His body, once soft and unremarkable, had become a weapon forged through suffering. Lean muscle wrapped his frame like armor, each fiber earned through countless hours of punishment disguised as training. Scars mapped his journey. The starburst pattern on his left shoulder from a destruction energy misfire, the 3 parallel lines across his back from a mountain beast Beerus had casually summoned, for combat experience, the circular mark on his palm where he'd first channeled Hawkeye energy and nearly disintegrated his own hand. Dawn Pi, NTED, the mountain training ground in watercolor hues. Issei stood perfectly still, eyes closed, breath measured. 6 months ago, standing motionless for hours would have been impossible. Now, it was merely the morning warm-up. Your key control has improved, Beerus noted from his floating position 10 meters above. The god of destruction reclined horizontally in midair, tail swishing with lazy contentment. Not terrible for a human beginner. From Beerus, this qualified as effusive praise. Issei's lips quirked in a slight smile, but he maintained his focus, azure energy flowing around his body like liquid light. Thank you, Lord Beerus. Don't get cocky, the deity warned. You've barely scratched the surface of what's possible. Your pathetic human limitations are exactly why my progress is impressive, Issei finished. Having heard this particular speech dozens of times, Beerus's ear twitched in annoyance. Interrupting your teacher. Perhaps you need another demonstration of the gap between us. Issei's eyes snapped open. No, thank you, he said quickly. The last demonstration had left him unconscious for 3 days. Wise decision. Beerus descended, touching down with feline grace. Now then, let's see your progress with destruction energy. This was the part Issei both anticipated and dreaded. Destruction energy, Hawkeye, was fundamentally different from Ki. Where Ki flowed, Hawkeye consumed. Where Ki could be gentle or fierce, Hawkeye knew only annihilation. It was, as Beerus had explained repeatedly, the universe's way of ensuring that creation remained balanced. Remember, Beerus instructed, destruction isn't about force, it's about precision, the ability to identify the exact point where something ceases to exist. Issei extended his right hand, palm up. Focusing inward, he located the reservoir of unusual energy Beerus had helped him cultivate, a small, carefully contained pool of destructive potential that felt perpetually hungry, eager to be unleashed. Purple light sparked between his fingers, unstable and threatening. Unlike the smooth flow of Ki, Hawkeye energy pulsed erratically, each heartbeat a whispered promise of oblivion. Better control, Beerus observed. Now, the test. Quote, with a casual gesture, the deity manifested a small stone hovering before Issei. Destroy half. Only half. Issei exhaled slowly. Partial destruction require unimaginable precision. The ability to define exactly where existence ended and non-existence began, down to the molecular level. Hawkeye, he whispered. Purple energy lanced from his fingertips to the stone. For a breathless moment, the rock was enveloped in violet light. When the glow faded, exactly half remained, the division line so perfect it appeared machine-cut. Beerus nodded once. Acceptable. Coming from the god of destruction, this was equivalent to a standing ovation. Issei allowed himself a moment of pride before dispelling the energy. Now, Beerus continued, let's see your combined technique. This was what Issei had been working toward for months, the fusion of dragon power and destruction energy. The theoretical potential had fascinated Beerus from the beginning. Destruction energy that doubled in potency every 10 seconds could, theoretically, reach levels that even gods would respect. Issei summoned the boosted gear, the red gauntlet materializing around his left arm with a flash of crimson light. Partner has improved significantly, DxD's voice resonated from the jewel, though his potential remains largely untapped. No commentary from the jewelry, Beerus said dismissively. Proceed with the demonstration. Issei had learned not to laugh at Beerus's deliberate baiting of the ancient dragon. Their antagonistic relationship had become so mething of a running joke. The god of destruction pretending DxD was merely an accessory, the heavenly dragon responding with increasingly formal critiques of Beerus's teaching methods. Boost, the gauntlet announced, power surging through Issei's system. Simultaneously, he summoned Hawkeye energy to his right hand, the purple destruction force dancing between his fingers. This was the truly DFFI cult part, maintaining two fundamentally different energy types simultaneously without allowing them to interact prematurely. Boost, a second wave of enhancement flooded his body. Sweat beaded Issei's forehead as he carefully began merging the energies, not simply combining them, but weaving them together in precise patterns. Too much dragon power would overwhelm the destruction energy, rendering it unfocused. Too much Hawkeye would consume the dragon power before it could be properly utilized. Boost, the third enhancement hit as the energies began to blend, creating a swirling sphere of crimson-tinged violet in his palm. Crimson destruction, Issei named the technique, his voice strained with concentration. The energy sphere pulsed with barely contained power, neither fully red nor fully purple. But something new, a color that seemed to exist between dimensions. Beerus's ears perked up with genuine interest. Target that mountain ridge, he instructed, pointing to a stone outcropping approximately 1 kilometer distant. Issei took aim, stabilizing the volatile energy with sheer willpower. Crimson destruction. The sphere launched forward, trailing otherworldly light. When it struck the mountain, reality itself seemed to hiccup. The entire ridge didn't explode, it unwound, matter spiraling into nothingness like thread pulled from a sweater. A perfect semicircle, 50 meters in diameter, simply ceased to exist. Silence fell across the training ground. Even Beerus appeared momentarily impressed before reasserting his customary indifference. Sloppy execution, the deity commented. The energy dispersion was uneven. With proper control, you could have made a perfect sphere of influence instead of that irregular pattern. Issei collapsed to one knee, exhaustion washing over him. Combined techniques drained his reserves far more quickly than either power source alone. Still, Beerus continued, his tone softening fractionally, it shows potential. With continued training, you might eventually produce destruction energy worthy of notice. From Beerus, this was practically gushing praise. Thank you, Lord Beerus, Issei managed between labored breaths. Enough for today, the deity declared, stretching languidly. Whis mentioned something about a school ceremony you've been prattling on about. Issei's head snapped up. The entrance ceremony at Kuo Academy. That's today. He scrambled to his feet. What time is it? Approximately what humans would call 7:30 a.m., Whis answered, appearing beside them with his customary perfect timing. The blue attendant had spent much of the past 6 months exploring Earth's culture, developing a particular fascination with human cuisine. I'm going to be late. Issei panicked. The ceremony starts at 8 o'clock, and I'm covered in. Whis tapped his staff against the ground once, and instantly Issei's training clothes were replaced with a pristine Kuo Academy uniform. Even the dirt and sweat vanished, leaving him perfectly groomed. Thanks, Whis, Issei said gratefully. A simple matter, the attendant replied with a small smile. Though I still don't understand your insistence on maintaining this, student, facade. With your current abilities, such human institutions seem superfluous. It was an ongoing philosophical disagreement. Whis couldn't comprehend why someone with Issei's wing power would subject himself to mundane human education. Issei, despite his transformation, remained determined to maintain connections to his original life. It's not just about education, I explained for perhaps the 100th time. It's about belonging somewhere normal. Having friends my age, experiencing things that aren't life or death training sessions. Beerus yawned dramatically. Sentimentality. A weakness we'll eventually train out of you. Besides, Issei continued, ignoring the comment, Kuo Academy recently became co-ed. Do you know what that means? That the Educa Chional institution now accommodates multiple gender identities, Whis answered precisely. A progressive development in human social structures. It means girls, Issei clarified, a hint of his old perverted enthusiasm breaking through his otherwise disciplined demeanor. Lots of them. After going to all boys schools my whole life. Beerus rolled his eyes. 6 months of godlike training, and H.E.'s still fixated on human mating rituals. Pathetic. I'm 17, Issei defended himself. It's normal. Nothing about you is normal anymore, Beerus pointed out. Or have you forgotten that you can literally erase matter from existence? Issei had not, in fact, forgotten. The power thrumming beneath his skin was a constant reminder of how far he'd diverged from humanity. Yet something in him clung desperately to normalcy, to the ordinary life he'd once taken for granted. All the more reason to stay connected to regular human experiences, he insisted. I don't want to lose myself to the power. Beerus studied him with those unnerving golden eyes. Perhaps there's wisdom in that, he conceded unexpectedly. The best destroyers understand what they're destroying. Perspective has value. Coming from Beerus, this philosophical concession was shocking. Issei stared at his mentor, momentarily speechless. Don't look so surprised, Beerus snapped. I can appreciate multiple viewpoints. I've been destroying civilizations for millions of years. I understand the importance of context. Of course, Issei agreed quickly. Thank you for understanding. I'm not being understanding, I'm being practical. Beerus corrected. Now go to your human ritual before I change my mind and assign additional training. Issei didn't need to be told twice. With a grateful bow to both Beerus and Whis, he channeled ki to enhance his speed and launched himself skyward. Flight was among the first practical skills Beerus had taught him, because watching you trudge up and down the mountain was tedious. As Kuo town appeared in the distance, Issei felt the familiar twinge of dual existence. In one world, he was the apprentice of a god of destruction, wielder of the boosted gear, and master of increasingly terrifying powers. In another, he was just Issei Hyodo, 17-year-old high school student with mediocre grades and ordinary problems. Reconciling these realities had become his daily challenge. Kuo Academy loomed ahead, its European-inspired architecture standing out among the modern buildings surrounding it. Until recently, it had been an all-girls private school, BU. This year marked its transition to co-ed status, a change that had prompted Issei to apply despite his unimpressive academic record. He landed in a secluded area behind the gymnasium, making sure no one observed his airborne arrival. The last thing he needed was to expose supernatural abilities on his first day. The courtyard bustled with activity as students gathered for the entrance ceremony. Issei merged into the crowd, immediately conscious of the gender imbalance. Girls outnumbered boys by at least 5 to 1, a ratio that would have sent his former self into paroxysms of perverted glee. Now, however, he noticed something else. Subtle energy signatures flickering throughout the student body. Most were ordinary humans, their life force dim and unremarkable. But scattered among them were individuals with distinctly unusual auras, cool, controlled power that reminded him of water flowing underground. Devils, Diedrag's voice whispered in his mind. This school has been claimed as territory by a devil faction. Issei maintained his casual demeanor while processing this information. How many? He sub-vocalized, knowing the dragon could hear his thoughts. At least 7 with significant power. Possibly more concealing their presence. This is interesting development, partner. Seems your desire for normalcy has led you directly into supernatural politics. That was just his luck. 6 months ago, Issei had been blissfully unaware of the hidden world surrounding humanity. Now he couldn't escape it, even in high school. Should I be concerned? He asked silently. Not immediately. Devils aren't inherently hostile, especially those who choose to live openly among humans. But they will certainly notice your power eventually, no matter how carefully you suppress it. Suppression was another skill Beerus had drilled into him relentlessly. A true master of destruction knows when not to be noticed, the deity had explained. Sometimes the greatest demonstration of power is the ability to conceal it completely. Issei focused on the mental exercises that dampened his energy signature, pulling his power deep within himself until, to casual observation, he would register as nothing more than a slightly unusual human. The entrance ceremony proceeded with tedious predictability. Speeches from administrators, introduction of faculty, explanation of school rules. Issei found his attention wandering despite his best efforts to appear engaged. That changed when he noticed a particular student watching him from across the auditorium. She sat with perfect posture among a small group of upperclassmen who practically radiated authority. Long crimson hair cascaded over her shoulders, framing features that seemed almost too perfect to be real. But it was her energy signature that truly captured Issei's attention, powerful, controlled, and unmistakably inhuman. Their eyes met briefly across the crowded room. Hers widened fractionally in "What am I? DxD have been surprised" before her lips curved in a polite, measured smile. Issei nodded once in acknowledgement, then deliberately shifted his gaze elsewhere, pretending disinterest. "That one is dangerous," DxD commented. "High-class devil nobility, judging by her aura. Likely the territorial leader." "Great," Issei thought sarcastically. "Just what I needed on my first day. Demonic royalty." The ceremony concluded, and students dispersed to their assigned classrooms. Issei found his way to Class 2B, selecting a desk near the window that offered both a pleasant view and strategy. See positioning for quick exit if necessary. Old habits from Beerus's combat training died hard. As students filtered in, Issei cataloged them automatically, mostly ordinary humans with the expected energy signatures. No obvious supernatural entities in his immediate class, which was both a relief and a disappointment. Part of him had hoped for complete normalcy, another part craved connection with others who understood the hidden world. The morning passed uneventfully. Issei found the academic material laughably simple compared to the multidimensional physics which occasionally lectured on during training breaks. He answered questions when called upon but otherwise maintained a deliberately average presence, neither standing out nor fading completely into the background. When lunch period arrived, he opted to explore the campus rather than remain confined in the classroom. Kuo Academy was impressively large, with multiple buildings, extensive grounds, and facilities that spoke of serious financial backing. Issei made mental notes of exit points, defensive positions, and potential battlegrounds, another habit from Beerus's paranoia-inducing training regimen. His wandering brought him to the old school building, a Victorian-style structure standing somewhat apart from the main campus. Unlike the other buildings, this one radiated supernatural energy, subtle but unmistakable. "The Devil's Nest," DxD observed. "Their territorial headquarters, most likely." Issei started to turn away, not wanting to provoke a confrontation on his first day, when the building's front door opened. The crimson-haired girl he'd noticed earlier emerged, accompanied by another female student whose energy signature was equally potent but dramatically different in character. Where the Edhead's power felt controlled and aristocratic, this new girl's energy sparked with barely restrained wildness. Long black hair tied in a ponytail cascaded down her back, and violet eyes held a mixture of amusement and danger. Her smile, directed at something the redhead was saying, revealed playful mischief. Issei found himself momentarily transfixed. It wasn't just her obvious beauty, though that was considerable. Something about her aura called to him on a primal level, resonating with the destruction energy Beerus had helped him cultivate. It felt like standing near a lightning storm, dangerous but exhilarating. "Be careful, partner," DxD cautioned. "That one has fallen angel blood mixed with devil energy. A rare and potentially volatile combination." Before Issei could process this information, both girls turned in his direction. He'd been standing motionless too long, his attention too focused to maintain proper concealment. The redhead's expression remained pleasantly neutral, but her companion's eyes lit with immediate interest. Era," the black-haired girl said, her voice musical and teasing. "It seems we have an audience, Rias." The redhead, Rias, a pair. NTLY, studied Issei with calculated assessment. "So it seems, Akano." She stepped forward with the confidence of someone accustomed to authority. "You're a new student, aren't you? I don't recall seeing you before this semester." Issei straightened, offering a polite bow. 6 months of Beerus's training had beaten most of his social awkwardness out of him, often literally. "Issei Hyodo, second year," he introduced himself. Yes, this is my first day at Kuo Academy. Rias Gramori, third year and president of the Occult Research Club, she replied with a gracious nod. And this is Akano Himahima, my vice president. Pleasure to meet you, Akano said, her smile sending inexplicable warmth through Issei's chest. What brings you to the old school building? Most new students stick to the main campus. Issei considered his options. Lying to supernatural entities with their own sensory abilities was generally futile. Honesty, or at least partial honesty, seemed the better approach. Just exploring, he said with a casual shrug. Getting familiar with the campus layout. How diligent, Akano remarked, her tone suggesting she didn't believe him for a second. Rias took a step closer, her green eyes narrowing slightly. You feel unusual, Issei Hyodo. Have we met before? I don't believe so, he answered truthfully. I would remember meeting someone like you, Gramori-senpai. Something flickered across her expression. Surprise, perhaps, at his careful phrasing. Someone like me, she repeated. Someone so memorable, Issei clarified smoothly. 6 months of verbal spar. Ring with Beerus had honed his ability to navigate conversational minefields. Your hair color is quite distinctive. Akano's melodic laugh broke the growing tension. He's good, Rias. Quick on his feet. Rias's smile returned, though her eyes remained evaluative. Indeed. Well, Hyodo-kun, if you're interested in the paranormal, perhaps you'd like to visit our club sometime. The Occult Research Club welcomes those with curiosity about unusual phenomena. The invitation was clearly a pretext for further investigation of his nature. Issei recognized the political maneuvering, establish contact, maintain control of the interaction, gather information in a controlled environment. Thank you for the invitation, he replied. I might take you up on that sometime. Wonderful. Rias produced a small card from her pocket. Here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out whenever you'd like to visit. As Issei accepted the card, his fingers briefly brushed against hers. The moan, airy contact sent a ripple of energy between them, nothing hostile, merely recognition between fundamentally different power types. Rias's eyes widened fractionally before her composed expression returned. Well, we shouldn't keep you from your exploration. Enjoy your first day at Kuo Academy, Hyodo-kun. Thank you, Gramori-senpai, Himahima-senpai. He bowed again, preparing to depart. Oh, and Hyodo-kun, Akano called as he turned away. When he looked back, her smile had taken on a predatory edge that sent an entirely different kind of shiver down his spine. Do be careful where you wander. Some parts of campus can be dangerous for unsuspecting students. The warning, or was it a threat, hung in the air between them. Issei met her gaze directly, allowing just the slightest flicker of power to surface in his eyes. I appreciate the concern, he replied, his voice dropping to a register that Beerus had once described as his destruction tone. But I'm rarely unsuspecting these days. For a heartbeat, genuine surprise registered on both girls' faces. Then Issei deliberately broke the tension, offering a friendly smile and casual wave before walking away at a measured pace. Bold move, partner, DxD commented once he was out of earshot. Showing your fangs so early in the game. Better they know I'm not helpless, Issei sub-vocalized. Establishes boundaries without direct confrontation. Beerus's political training is showing. Still, you've guaranteed they'll investigate you now. Issei smiled slightly. They were going to anyway. This way, they'll be cautious about how they approach it. The remainder of the school day passed without further supernatural encounters. When classes ended, Issei departed campus at a normal human pace, maintaining his facade until reaching a secluded area where he could take to the air without observation. The journey to the mountain training ground took mere minutes at his current flight speed. As expected, Beerus was napping in his usual floating position while Whis examined what appeared to be a complex magical diagram hovering above his staff. You're late, Beerus said without opening his eyes. How was your human education ritual? Quote, interesting, Issei replied, changing into training clothes with practiced efficiency. The school is controlled by devils. I met their leader, Rias Gramori. That got Beerus's attention. One golden eye cracked open. Gramori, one of the 72 pillars of the underworld nobility. Old bloodline, he yawned, stretching like the feline he resembled. territorial and political by nature. Did she recognize what you are? She sensed something unusual, Issei confirmed. But I don't think she identified the specific nature of my power. She wouldn't, Whis interjected, dispelling the magical diagram with a tap of his staff. Destruction energy isn't native to this cosmological system. Even experienced supernatural entities would have difficulty categorizing it properly. Beerus floated upright, his expression turning serious. This complicates things. Devils are hierarchical and possessive of their claimed territories. Once they confirm you're not one of them, they'll categorize you as either potential ally or threat. I received a club invitation, Issei said, producing Rias's card. The Occult Research Club, obviously a front for whatever devil operations they're running at the school. Transparent but effective, Whis commented. Hiding supernatural activities behind a veil of eccentricity rather than complete secrecy. Quite clever, really. Beerus snatched the card, examining it with mild interest before flicking it back to Issei. Accept the invitation. What? Issei caught the card reflexively. Wouldn't that be walking into potential danger? Precisely. Beerus confirmed with a fanged grin. The best way to understand their capabilities and intentions is direct interaction. Besides, he added, stretching lazily, I am curious about how they'll react to you. Consider it a diplomatic training exercise. Whis nodded agreement. Understanding the political landscape of this world's supernatural community will be valuable for your development. Gods of destruction must be adept at navigating complex interfactional relationships. Issei frowned. I'm not planning to become a god of destruction. Not planning to, Beerus emphasized. But the training remains valuable regardless of your eventual path. The principles of power, territory, and authority are universal. It was difficult to argue with that logic. Besides, Issei admitted to himself, he was curious about the devils, particularly the black-haired vice president whose energy had resonated so strangely with his own. There was another devil, he said, trying to sound casual. Akano Himahima. DxD said she has fallen angel blood mixed with devil energy. Interesting hybrid, Whis noted. Such combinations are rare in any cosmological system. Natural or artificial, I don't know, Issei admitted. But her energy, it felt different. Almost complementary to destruction power. Beerus's ears perked up with sudden interest. Complementary. Explain. Issei struggled to articulate the sensation. It was like, when you place two tuning forks near each other, and they begin to vibrate at the same frequency. Her energy signature seemed to harmonize with mine on some fundamental level. Most intriguing, Whis murmured, exchanging a meaningful glance with Beerus. Certain energy types do naturally resonate with destruction power. In our universe, angels particularly. Enough speculation, Beerus interrupted, his tone suddenly harsh. We're wasting training time. Today we focus on speed and precision. Your performance this morning was adequate but inconsistent. The abrupt change of subject was puzzling, but Issei had learned not to question Beerus's teaching methods. Whatever had prompted the deity's sudden discomfort the conversation would likely be revealed in time, or not, given Beerus's fondness for arbitrary secrecy. Training proceeded with typical brutality. By sunset, Issei lay sprawled on the ground, every muscle trembling with exhaustion. Beerus had been particularly demanding, almost as if attempting to drive all thoughts of devil girls from his student's mind through sheer physical torment. Pathetic stamina, Beerus commented. Though without real heat, you've plateaued in your physical development. We need to push you past your current limitations. Issei groaned, attempting to sit up. I thought I was doing well for a human. For a human, yes, Beerus conceded. But you're training to transcend such classifications. Your potential ceiling is far higher, especially with the dragon's power augmenting your natural abilities. Quote, he's right, partner, DxD contributed. Your body has adapted admirably to the training so far, but further advancement requires breaking through biological limitations. And how exactly do I do that? Issei asked, finally managing to stand on shaking legs. Beerus and Whis exchanged another of those meaningful glances that always preceded something particularly unpleasant. We accelerate your development, Beerus declared. No more coddling. From tomorrow, we implement true God of Destruction training protocols. Issei's stomach sank. What does that mean? Whis sighed, his expression sympathetic. It means training at the threshold of survival. Pushing your body to the absolute limit of what it can endure, then slightly beyond. Slightly beyond what I can endure. Issei repeated incredulously. Wouldn't that kill me? Perhaps, Beerus acknowledged casually. But probably not. The dragon will likely prevent fatal damage. Don't count on it, DxD muttered. I can accelerate healing and provide power boosts, but I can't prevent death if the body is pushed too far too fast. Encouraging, Issei said dryly. Beerus waved a dismissive hand. Risk is essential to growth. Besides, you've shown adequate potential. It would be wasteful to lose you to simple training accidents at this point. Coming from Beerus, this qualified as a ringing endorsement. Issei couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of pride at the backhanded compliment. I'll do my best not to die, then, he replied with gallows humor. See that you don't, Beerus said. His tone suddenly serious. I've invested 6 months in your development. I dislike wasted investments. With that parting sentiment, the deity vanished, presumably turning to the small shrine in the mountains that had become his temporary residence during their extended stay in this universe. Whis remained behind, his expression thoughtful. You should know, the attendant said quietly, that Lord Beerus has never dedicated this much consistent time to a single student. 6 continuous months of daily training is unprecedented in his several million-year history. Issei blinked in surprise. Really? Why me? That, Whis said with an enigmatic smile, is the question that keeps me awake at night, figuratively speaking, as I require minimal sleep. He tapped his staff against the ground. Rest well, Issei Hyodo. Tomorrow's training will redefine your understanding of suffering. With that cheerful prediction, Whis vanished as well, leaving Issei alone on the mountainside with the setting sun painting the landscape in fiery hues. You should be flattered, DxD commented as Issei began his journey home. Gods of destruction rarely take personal interest in mortals. When they do, it usually ends with planetary devastation, not mentorship. Lucky me, Issei muttered, taking to the air despite his exhaustion. Flying consumed less energy than walking at this point, his key control having progressed to the level where maintaining flight was nearly automatic. Your encounter with the devil girls troubles me more, DxD continued. Particularly your reaction to the hybrid one. Akano, Issei said, the name emerging with unexpected warmth. What about her? The resonance you described is unusual. In my experience, such natural energy synchronization typically indicates one of two things: extraordinary compatibility or extraordinary danger. Issei considered this as he soared above the twinkling lights of Kuo town. And you can't tell which? Not yet, but I advise caution. Fallen angels and devils both have histories of manipulation and deception. A hybrid combining both bloodlines could be particularly dangerous. Are particularly interesting, Issei countered, surprised by his own defensiveness. DxD's rumbling laughter echoed through his mind. The predictability of teenage hormones. Even with godlike training and destructive power at your fingertips, you remain susceptible to a pretty face and mysterious aura. It's not like that, Issei protested, though without conviction. I'm just curious about the energy resonance. For training purposes. Of course, DxD agreed with mock seriousness. Purely academic interest. I'm certain Lord Beerus will approve of your scientific approach to investigating female devils. Issei's cheeks burned at the dragon's teasing. Despite 6 months of intense training and growing power, some aspects of his personality remained stubbornly unchanged, including his susceptibility to feminine appeal. The next morning arrived with the promised escalation in training intensity. Beerus didn't bother with warm-ups or preparation. The moment Issei arrived at the training ground, the god of destruction launched an attack that would have vaporized a normal human. Only months of conditioned reflexes saved Issei from instant obliteration. Too slow, Beerus taunted, appearing behind Issei and landing a kick that sent him crashing through 3 boulders before he could stabilize himself. If this is your best, perhaps I should find a more promising student. Issei spat blood, pain radiating through his body. This wasn't their usual sparring. Beerus was genuinely trying to hurt him. For the first time, he felt real fear of his mentor. Boost. The sacred gear responded to his desperation, doubling his power immediately. Relying on the dragon already? Beerus mocked, moving so quickly he seemed to teleport. Pathetic. A true god of destruction depends on no one else's power. Another devastating blow sent Issei plummeting into the mountainside, creating a crater on impact. Consciousness wavered, darkness threatening to claim him. He's trying to trigger something. DxD's voice cut through the pain. This isn't random cruelty. He's pushing you toward a specific breakthrough. What breakthrough? Issei gasped, dragging himself from the rubble. I don't know, but whatever it is, he believes near death is the pathway. Gods of destruction are notorious for these methods. Beerus appeared above him, palm extended downward. Disappointing. Perhaps I was wrong about your potential. Purple energy gathered above the deity's hand, far more concentrated than anything he'd previously directed at Issei. This wasn't a training attack. This was genuine destruction energy capable of atomizing its target. If you can't survive this, Beerus declared, you were never worthy of my training. The Hawkeye sphere launched downward, its violet glow promising oblivion. Time seemed to slow as Issei watched death approach. In that stretched moment, something fundamental shifted within him, a barrier breaking. A limitation shattering. His body moved without conscious direction, right hand extending upward. Not to block, not to deflect, but to catch. When destruction energy met his palm, the expected annihilation didn't occur. Instead, the purple sphere compressed, condensed, and then, absorbed into his skin. Violet energy raced through his veins like liquid fire, painful yet somehow right. Beerus's eyes widened in genuine surprise, perhaps the first time Issei had seen that expression on his mentor's face. Interesting, the deity murmured, descending slowly. You absorbed pure destruction energy. Few beings in any universe can accomplish that without disintegrating. Issei stared at his hand in bewilderment. Purple energy continued to course beneath his skin, gradually, integrating with his own power rather than consuming it. What's happening to me? He asked, voice unsteady. Evolution, Beerus answered simply. Your body is adapting to channel destruction energy directly, without the usual filters and limitations have been imposing on your training. You could have warned me, and risk a self-fulfilling failure. Beerus scoffed. True evolution requires genuine survival pressure. You needed to believe death was imminent. Issei struggled to his feet, anger building alongside the strange new power flowing through him. You could have killed me. Yes, Beerus agreed without a hint of remorse. That was always a possibility. But you survived, which proves my initial assessment correct. You possess the potential to become something truly interesting. Before Issei could respond, a wave of dizziness struck him. The world tilted sideways as his consciousness finally surrendered to the combined trauma of injury and energy conversion. His last tea, hot before darkness claimed him, was that Akeno would be disappointed when he failed to appear at school today. Dreams came fragmented and chaotic. Destruction energy coursed through his mindscape, reshaping neural pathways and fundamental energy channels. DxD's presence hovered at the edges, neither interfering nor assisting, merely observing with ancient patience. At some point, Issei beckoned me, aware of voices discussing him as if he weren't present. The integration is proceeding faster than anticipated, Whis was saying. His cellular structure is reconfiguring to accommodate destructi. On energy is a native power source rather than an external technique. As I predicted, Beerus replied, satisfaction evident in his tone. The dragon's adaptability combined with his natural affinity creates unique developmental potential. Still, Whis cautioned, the process remains dangerous. If the balance tips too far toward destruction energy dominance, his human identity could be compromised. That's a feature, not a flaw. Beerus countered. Transcending his human limitations is precisely the point. And what of his school? His human connections? The Devil faction will certainly notice this transformation. Let them notice. It's time they understood what's developing in their territory. Besides, Beerus added with what sounded like amusement, I'm curious how his resonance with the hybrid devil will develop now that his energy signature has fundamentally changed. The conversation faded as Issei slipped deeper into unconsciousness, the transformation continuing at the cellular level. When he finally awoke, 3 days had passed. He found himself in a small shrine building, Beerus's temporary residence, lying on a simple futon. Sunlight streamed through paper windows, indicating late afternoon. Finally conscious, Beerus observed from his seated position nearby. The god of destruction was enjoying what appeared to be a bowl of ramen, slurping noodles with his customary lack of decorum. I was beginning to think you might sleep for a full week. Issei sat up slowly, expecting pain. To his surprise, his body felt better than ever, lighter, stronger, more integrated. The perpetual barrier he'd always felt between his consciousness and his physical form had thinned somehow, creating a more unified sense of self. "What happened to me?" he asked, examining his hands. Faint purple lines traced his veins just beneath the skin, pulsing with gentle rhythm. "Exactly what was supposed to happen," Beerus replied, setting aside his empty bowl. "Your body has begun the transformation process. You're no longer channeling destruction energy as an external force, you're generating it internally, as I do." The implications were staggering. "Does that mean that you're becoming more like a god of destruction?" Beerus finished for him. "In some ways, yes. Though you remain fundamentally human, with all the limitations and advantages that entails." "And the dragon?" "I remain unchanged," DxD answered immediately. "Though the integration creates new possibilities for our partnership, your body can now handle far more of my power without risk of overload." Issei closed his eyes, assessing his internal landscape. The changes were profound yet somehow natural, as if his body had been moving toward this configuration all along, merely requiring the right catalyst. "What does this mean for my training?" he asked, opening his eyes to find Beerus studying him with unusual intensity. "It means we enter a new phase," the deity answered. "Less brutal physical conditioning, more refined energy manipulation. Your body will continue adapting automatically now that the process has begun." "And school? I've missed 3 days." "Handled," Whis interjected, entering the shrine with his customary grace. "I took the liberty of contacting your educational institution with an appropriate illness explanation. Quite convincing, if I do say so myself." Issei wasn't sure whether to be grateful or concerned about what convincing might entail when coming from Whis. The attendant's understanding of human social norms remained somewhat abstract despite his best efforts. "Thank you," he said anyway. "I should probably return tomorrow if I'm physically able." "More than able," Beerus assured him. "In fact, I'm curious how the devils will react to your upgraded condition. Their sensing abilities should detect the change immediately." Issei recalled the conversation he'd overheard during his transformation. "You want to use me to send them a message?" Beerus's ears twitched with satisfaction. "Very good. Your political awareness is improving. Yes, your return to school will serve as a demonstration that something significant has entered their territory. How they respond will be informative. And if they react hostilely..." The god of destruction's smile showed far too many teeth. "Then they learn a painful lesson about hierarchy." Issei wasn't entirely comfortable being used as a political chess piece, but he understood the logic. Better to establish boundaries clearly than risk misunderstandings that could escalate to conflict. "What about Akeno?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "You mentioned something about resonance changing because of my transformation." Beerus and Whis exchanged one of their communicative glances. "Certain energy types naturally complement destruction power," Whis explained carefully. "In our universe, angelic energy particularly resonates with destruction energy, a cosmic balance of creation and erasure. This fallen angel-devil hybrid you've fixated on," Beerus continued, "possesses energy with potentially similar complementary properties. The resonance you felt before will likely intensify now that your destruction energy has become internalized." "Is that dangerous?" Issei asked, remembering DxD's warning. "Dangerous, perhaps." Beerus stretched languidly. "Interesting. Definitely. The interaction between a proto-destruction deity and a hybrid with complementary energy has no precedent in my experience." "Proto-destruction deity," Issei repeated, alarmed by the terminology. "I'm not becoming a god." "Not yet," Beerus agreed with unsettling emphasis on the second word. "But the path has begun. Where it leads depends largely on your choices from this point forward." This was too much to process. Issei had agreed to training, to becoming stronger, not to godhood or whatever transformation Beerus was implying. Yet he couldn't deny the rightness of the changes occurring within him. As if his body had found its true configuration after years of existing in an incomplete state. "I need to think," he said finally, rising to his feet with fluid grace that would have been impossible before the transformation. "And I need to prepare for returning to school tomorrow." "Of course," Whis agreed sympathetically. Such fundamental changes require psychological adjustment as well as physical. Take the evening to center yourself. Beerus merely nodded, already turning his attention to another bowl of ramen that had appeared beside him. The god of destruction's appetite was legendary, one trait Issei hoped wouldn't transfer through his training. Issei departed the shrine, taking to the air with unprecedented ease. Flight no longer required conscious effort. His body simply responded to his desire for elevation, destruction energy providing seemingly effortless propulsion. As the landscape unfolded beneath him, Issei contemplated his situation. 6 months ago, he'd been an ordinary teenager with ordinary problems. Now he was generating destruction energy internally, becoming something that might eventually transcend humanity and preppa. Ring to navigate supernatural politics with devil nobility. And somewhere in this bizarre new reality, a black-haired devil-angel hybrid waited, her energy signature promising resonance that both excited and terrified him. You stand at a crossroads, partner, DxD observed as Issei soared through the evening sky. The choices you make in the coming days will set your path for centuries to come. Centuries, Issei repeated, startled by the time frame. You think I'll live that long? With your current transformation, potentially much longer. Destruction energy fundamentally alters lifespan limitations. Beerus is millions of years old, after all. This was yet another implication Issei hadn't considered. Extended lifespan meant watching everyone he knew age and die, parents, friends. Even eventual partners unless they too possessed supernatural longevity. One day at a time, he murmured to himself as his house came into view below. First, survive school tomorrow. Then worry about living for centuries. As he descended into his backyard, carefully avoiding neighborhood observation, Issei couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would mark another fundamental turning point in his rapidly evolving life. He wasn't wrong. The moment he stepped onto Kuo Academy grounds the following morning, every supernatural entity within sensing range froze. Conversations halted mid-sentence as devils throughout the school turned toward his presence like flowers tracking the sun. Issei maintained a deliberately casual demeanor, walking toward his classroom as if unaware of the sensation he was causing. Inside, however, he monitored every reaction, cataloging potential threats and allies with the situational awareness Beerus had literally beaten into him. He made it precisely 3 steps into the main building before Rias Grimori appeared before him, her composed expression betraying only the slightest hint of concern. Beside her stood Akino, whose violet eyes widened with unmistakable interest. Hyodo-kun, Rias greeted him, her tone carefully neutral. We missed you these past few days. I hope you're feeling better. Much better, thank you, Issei replied with a polite smile. It was a transformative experience. Akino's lips curved into an appreciative smile at his deliberate word choice. We can see that, she said, her musical voice carrying an undertone that sent pleasant shivers down Issei's spine. You've changed quite dramatically, haven't you? The resonance Issei had felt during their first meeting had indeed intensified. Standing near Akino now created a harmonic vibration between their energy signatures, not uncomfortable, but impossible to ignore. Like 2 complementary musical notes played simultaneously, their auras enhanced rather than clashed with each other. Perhaps we could continue this conversation somewhere more private, Rias suggested, gesturing toward a nearby empty classroom. Your condition is attracting considerable attention. She wasn't wrong. Students throughout the hallway, supernatural and human alike, were staring at their interaction with varying degrees of subtlety. Of course, Issei agreed, following the devil girls into the classroom. Once the door closed behind them, Rias's diplomatic facade fell away, replaced by intense focus. What are you? She demanded directly. 3 days ago, you registered as unusual but fundamentally human. Now you're emanating energy unlike anything in our records. It's quite delicious, Akino added, moving closer to him with predatory grace. Destructive yet controlled, wild yet disciplined, her eyes gleamed with something between hunger and admiration. Absolutely intoxicating. Issei maintained his composure despite the effect her proximity was having on his newly sensitized energy system. The resonance between them intensified with every step she took, creating pleasant feedback loops through his destruction energy pathways. I'm still Issei Hyodo, He answered Rias's question while keeping his eyes on Akeno. But I'm undergoing changes under the tutelage of my mentor. And this mentor is... Rias pressed. Issei considered his response carefully, weighing Beerus's political objectives against the potential consequences of full disclosure. A god of destruction from another cosmological system, he answered finally. Deciding honesty served their purposes better than evasion. Lord Beerus arrived in this universe approximately 6 months ago and chose me as his student. The statement hung in the air between them, its implications expanding like ripples in a pond. Rias's expression shifted through disbelief, calculation, and finally cautious acceptance. A god from outside our cosmology, she repeated slowly. That would explain the unrecognizable energy signature. And this god of destruction, what are his intentions toward devil territory? The question confirmed DxD's assessment. Rias was indeed the territorial authority, concerned first and foremost with jurisdiction and potential threats. Lord Beerus has no territorial ambitions, Issei assured her. His interest is primarily in training me and occasionally sampling your world's cuisine. He's particularly fond of ramen. Rias didn't appear entirely convinced, but Akeno laughed, a sound both musical and slightly wicked. A destruct type deity who loves noodles and takes human apprentices, she summarized with evident delight. How wonderfully unexpected. Something about her reaction pleased Issei immensely. Where Rias approached the situation with political caution, Akeno seemed genuinely fascinated by the novelty and power dynamics involved. I would very much like to meet this god of destruction, Rias stated after a thoughtful pause. As the devil authority in Kuo town, diplomatic contact would be appropriate. Issei nodded. I'll convey your request, though I should warn you, Lord Beerus can be temperamental. And his power is beyond anything in this world's experience. All the more reason for formal introduction, Rias insisted. Proper protocols must be established to prevent unfortunate misunderstandings. Her diplomatic phrasing thinly veiled the real concern. A potentially hostile deity of unknown power operating in her territory represented an existential threat to devil authority. I understand, Issei acknowledged. I'll arrange a meeting when Lord Beerus is amenable. In the meantime, he added, deliberately changing the subject, I believe I still have that standing invitation to visit the Occult Research Club. Rias's political instincts immediately recognized the opening. Of course. In fact, why not join us after school today? It would give us an opportunity to become better acquainted with our unique new student. I'd be delighted to show you around the club, Akeno added, stepping close enough that their energy fields began to merge at the edges. The sensation was simultaneously intimate and exhilarating, like touching an electrical field that stimulated rather than harmed. Then I accept, Issei said, his voice dropping slightly as he met Akeno's gaze directly. Resonance between them peaked momentarily, destruction energy harmonizing with her hybrid aura in ways that sent pleasant shockwaves through his system. Akeno's eyes widened fractionally, confirming she felt it too. Her lips parted slightly in surprise before curving into a smile that promised both danger and delight. Wonderful, Rias declared, either oblivious to or deliberately ignoring the energetic exchange happening before her. We'll expect you at the old school building after final period. The classroom door opened, reminding all three that school activities continued regardless of supernatural politics. Students began filing in for morning classes, conversations halting momentarily as they sensed the unusual energy concentrations. Until this afternoon, then, Issei said with a polite bow to both girls. As they departed, Akeno glanced back over her shoulder, violet eyes meeting his with unmistakable interest. I look forward to learning more about destruction, she said, her voice carrying meanings beyond the simple words. The resonance lingered long after she disappeared from view, leaving Issei both intrigued and slightly overwhelmed by the implications of their connection. Be careful, partner, DxD cautioned as Issei took his seat for class. The energy synchronization is stronger than anticipated. Such connections can cloud judgment. Or enhance it, Issei countered silently. Either way, we're committed now. The devils know about Beerus, and they'll want answers. The political game begins in earnest, then. Let's hope your god of destruction mentor is prepared for diplomatic engagement. He doesn't strike me as the patient negotiator type. Given Beerus's usual approach to disagreement, immediate and thorough destruction of the opposing viewpoint. Often literally, Issei shared the dragon's concern. The meeting between a god of destruction and devil nobility would require careful management to avoid catastrophic outcomes. But that was a problem for later today. For now, Issei turned his attention to maintaining his human facade despite the pulsing destruction energy flowing through his veins and the lingering resonance of Akino's aura against his own. 6 months ago, his greatest concern had been passing mathematics. Now he was navigating supernatural politics while undergoing a transformation that might eventually transcend humanity itself. Life had certainly become more interesting. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, School of Gods and Devils. The crimson glow of dawn painted Kuo town in otherworldly light as Issei hovered 3,000 meters above his neighborhood, suspended in lotus position with eyes closed. Destruction energy coursed through his body in controlled cycles, purple light occasionally pulsing beneath his skin like bioluminescent veins. 6 small stones orbited around him, products of his latest training exercise. Each stone bore a unique pattern of partial destruction, one half erased with perfect precision. Another with its molecular structure unraveled from the inside while the exterior remained intact, a third existing in quantum superposition between matter and energy. The complex tie of each demonstration showcased his rapidly evolving control. Your precision is improving, Whis observed, appearing beside him with characteristic silence. The blue attendant's staff projected analytical data about Issei's energy output. Though your efficiency remains suboptimal, you're expending approximately 22% more energy than necessary for these exercises. Issei nodded without opening his eyes. The new pathways are still settling. It's like learning to write with my non-dominant hand. The intent is clear but the execution remains clumsy. An apt metaphor, Whis agreed, circling him with evaluative interest. The integration of destruction energy with your native biology continues to progress faster than anticipated. Lord Beerus finds it most intriguing. Where is he? Issei asked, finally opening his eyes. The orbiting stones immediately collapsed into dust that dissipated on the morning breeze. Exploring the culinary offerings of a place called Kyoto, Whis replied with mild amusement. He discovered something called tofu skin yesterday and declared it worthy of further investigation. I suspect he'll be occupied there for at least the next 48 hours. Issei couldn't suppress a smile. For all his terrifying power and capricious moods, Beerus's obsession with food remained his most predictable trait. That's convenient timing. I arranged a meeting with the devil leadership after school today. Having Lord Beerus present might have complicated matters. Indeed, Whis tapped his staff against nothing, producing a luminous display of temporal data. You have approximately 47 minutes before human educational activities commence. Sufficient time to complete your morning sequence. Issei nodded, rising from his meditative position. The morning training routine had become as necessary as breathing, a calibration of his increasingly complex energy systems before subjecting himself to the confined spaces and suppressed power state required for school attendance. One matter of potential interest, Whis added as Issei began his warm-up movements. I've detected an unusual energy signature approaching Kuo Academy. Not devil or fallen angel, but something from the Norse pantheon, if my analysis is correct. This caught Issei's attention. Norse, as in Odin and Thor. Precisely, Whis confirmed. The signature suggests a Valkyrie-class entity. Though modified in some way I cannot precisely identify without closer observation. Why would a Valkyrie come to a devil-controlled high school? An excellent question, Whis acknowledged with an approving nod. Lord Beerus would suggest you investigate. Supernatural politics in this world grow increasingly relevant to your development. Translation. Beerus wanted him to gather intelligence on all factions that might eventually interact with a god of destruction's apprentice. I'll keep my senses open, Issei promised, then shifted his focus to the morning's physical regiment. For the next 30 minutes, he pushed his body through forms and techniques that would have killed him 6 months earlier. Each movement precisely controlled, each breath measured, each energy spike contained. The regimen concluded with a controlled destruction pulse, a microscopic Hawkeye sphere compressed and then harmlessly dispelled, demonstrating mastery over the most volatile aspect of his power. Adequate, Whis assessed, which from him qualified as high praise. Your control metrics have improved 3.7% since yesterday. Maintaining this progression rate, you should achieve Preliminary mastery of your current power level within 17 days. Just in time for whatever new torture Beerus has planned, Issei commented dryly. He glanced at his watch, especially reinforced. Ed model Whis had provided after he'd accidentally disintegrated 3 normal ones during training. I should get to school. New transfer teacher today, according to the schedule. Whis's eyes twinkled with uncharacteristic mischief. Indeed, how fascinating. The knowing tone made Issei suspicious. You already knew about the transfer teacher. I make it my business to know many things, Whis replied enigmatically. Do give my regards to the Valkyrie. Before Issei could demand clarification, the attendant vanished, leaving him hovering alone above the waking town with the distinct imprint. Seijin he'd just been maneuvered into something. The hallways of Kuo Academy buzzed with unusual excitement that morning. News of a beautiful foreign transfer teacher had spread with telepathic efficiency among the student body, generating speculation and anticipation in equal measure. I heard she's from Northern Europe. Someone said she has 3 PhDs. My cousin's friend saw her arriving and said she looks like a model. Issei filtered through the chatter as he made his way to class, his supernatural hearing picking up conversations throughout the building. More interesting than student gossip, however, were the whispered exchanges among the devil contingent. Grimoire-sama is concerned about Asgardian involvement. Why would Odin send a Valkyrie now, of all times? NK it's connected to the new energy signature everyone's sensing. The last question confirmed Issei's suspicion. His transformed state had become a matter of active investigation among the supernatural community. Whether the Valkyrie's arrival was connected remained to be seen. Issei settled into his usual seat by the window, senses extended to monitor the approaching energy signature Whis had identified. It grew steadily closer, distinctive in its unfamiliar resonance, neither angelic nor demonic, but something ancient and distinctly martial in character. When the classroom door opened, even prepared as he was, Issei found himself momentarily stunned. The woman who entered carried herself with military precision, her posture perfect and movements economical. Silver-white hair cascaded down her back in an intricate braid, contrasting with the conservative dark suit she wore. Her features combined Nordic severity with unexpected softness around the eyes, creating a countenance both beautiful and slightly intimidating. Most striking, however, was her energy signature. Now that she stood before him, Issei could sense the complexity of her aura, primarily Valkyrie essence but with traces of something else. Something scholarly and almost mechanical in its precision. Magic, but unlike any he'd encountered in this world so far. Good morning, class, she greeted them in flawless Japanese, her voice carrying subtle music beneath crisp pronunciation. My name is Rossweiss. I will be your literature and ethics instructor for the remainder of the term. No family name, just Rossweiss. The simplicity of the introduction confirmed her otherworldly status. Beings of power often dispensed with human naming conventions. Her gaze swept the classroom with professional assessment, altering only momentarily when it reached Issei. The fraction of a second was imperceptible to human students, but Issei caught the minute widening of her eyes, the slight tension in her shoulders as she registered his unusual energy signature. He maintained a neutral expression, politely attentive like any other student. The game of mutual recognition without acknowledgement was familiar now, weeks of similar interactions with the devil faction. Class proceeded with unexpected engagement. Rossweiss proved an excellent teacher, knowledgeable, articulate, and possessed of a dry wit that emerged in surprising moments. She discussed Japanese literary classics with the insight of someone who had studied them for decades, despite appearing no older than her mid-20s. As students filed out at period's end, Issei deliberately organized his materials slowly, anticipating the confrontation. Sure enough, Rossweiss's voice cut through the departing chatter. Hyodo-kun, a moment of your time, please. He approached her desk with practiced casualness, aware that several devil students were lingering in the hallway, monitoring the interaction. Yes, Rossweiss-sensei. Up close. Her aura was even more fascinating, disciplined yet vibrant, containing mathematical precision that reminded him of Whis's analytical energy. Her pale blue eyes studied him with clinical interest. Your essay on ethical frameworks across cultural boundaries shows unusual insight, she said, maintaining the teacher pretense while her aura subtly extended toward his, a standard supernatural assessment technique. Perhaps you'd be interested in discussing it further during office hours. Issei allowed a measured amount of his energy to respond to her probing, enough to confirm her suspicions without revealing the full scope of his abilities. I'd appreciate that, sensei. Ethics is a developing interest of mine. The corner of her mouth twitched in what might have been appreciation for the double meaning. Indeed, the application of theoretical frameworks to practical situations can be quite challenging. My office is in the administrative building, 3rd floor. Shall we say 4 o'clock? I have a prior commitment with the Occult Research Club this afternoon, Issei replied, watching her reaction to the devil faction mention. Perhaps tomorrow. Something complex flickered across her expression, recognition, calculation, and a hint of what might have been concern. Tomorrow, then. I look forward to our discussion. As do I. Issei bowed respectfully before departing, careful to maintain the student-teacher dynamic despite their mutual awareness that something entirely different had transpired. In the hallway, he passed Kaneko Tuju, a small white-haired first-year he identified as a devil faction member with unusual energy properties. Her golden eyes tracked him with feline intensity as he walked by. Careful, she murmured, her voice barely audible even to his enhanced hearing. Many eyes watching now. The warning was unexpected. The first direct communication from a devil other than Rias and Akino. Issei nodded almost imperceptibly in acknowledgement but maintained his pace without breaking stride. The game grows more complex, Diedrag observed as Issei headed toward his next class. Valkyries are typically Odin's direct agents. Her presence UGGEST's Asgardian interest in recent developments. Meaning me, Issei concluded silently. You, the god of destruction, the increasing dimensional instability, take your pick. The dragons. Mention of dimensional instability gave Issei pause. Have you been sensing that too? I thought it might be a side effect of my transformation. It's not you. Something fundamental is changing in the barrier between realities. Beerus's arrival may have been both symptom and catalyst. The Valkyrie likely came to investigate. This aligned with fragments of conversations Issei had overheard among the devil students. Something larger was developing, something beyond factional politics or his personal transformation. The rest of the school day passed with heightened awareness as Issei logged supernatural reactions to both himself and the new Valkyrie teacher. Devils watched them both with calculated interest. The few fallen angels who occasionally scouted the school perimeter seemed agitated by the Norse presence. Human students remained oblivious to the invisible currents of power and politics flowing through their educational institution. When final period ended, Issei made his way to the old school building as arranged. The crimson sunset painted the Victorian structure in bloody hues, its windows reflecting fire. The building's boundary field, a subtle magical barrier designed to discourage casual human visitors, washed over him as he approached the entrance. Unlike a human, who would suddenly remember urgent business elsewhere, Issei felt the magic-like gentle fingers attempting to redirect his intention. He dispersed the influence with a careful pulse of destruction energy, not destroying the field itself, but rather its effect on his consciousness. The technique had been one of Whisa's more practical lessons. Precision targeting allows neutralizing effects without dismantling entire systems. The front door opened before he could knock. Akino stood in the entrance. Her customary school uniform replaced by a traditional Miko outfit that accentuated her Japanese heritage. The white haori and red hakama created striking contrast with her long black hair. Era, right on time. She greeted him, her melodic voice carrying that distinctive playfulness that somehow managed to be both welcoming and vaguely threatening. We've been looking forward to your visit, Issei-kun. The familiar address, dropping honorifics, established immediate intimacy. More significant was the energy wave that accompanied her greeting, her aura deliberately extending to brush against his, initiating the resonance they'd discovered during their previous meeting. Issei allowed the contact, curious about the interaction. As before, their energies harmonized in unexpected ways. Destruction power finding complementary frequencies in her hybrid essence. The sensation was pleasant, like fitting a key into a perfectly matched lock. Thank you for the invitation, he replied, stepping over the threshold. I've been curious about the Occult Research Club since our first conversation. Curious about the club, or its members. Akeno teased, leading him through a hallway. Decorated with arcane symbols and antique occult paraphernalia, some genuine, others clearly props for maintaining the club's public facade. Both, Issei admitted with a small smile. The transformate ion of recent months had boosted not just his power but his confidence. Where once he might have stammered in the presence of beautiful girls, he now engaged with comfortable self-assurance. Though I suspect the members are far more interesting than the official club activities. Akeno's laugh was genuine, tinged with approval. Direct, aren't you? I like that. She slid open an ornate wooden door, revealing a spacious room designed in Victorian style. Elegant furniture, bookshelves laden with ancient tomes, and subtle magical implements created an atmosphere both scholarly and mystical. Rias Grimori sat behind an antique desk, her crimson hair contrasting dramatically with the green upholstery of her chair. Beside her stood a handsome blonde young man with an aura of knightly grace and controlled holy energy, an unusual signature for a devil. Seated on a nearby sofa was Kaneko, the small white-haired girl who had warned him earlier, now occupied with methodically consuming a plate of sweets. "Welcome to the Occult Research Club, Hyodo-kun," Rias greeted him, gesturing toward an empty armchair across from her desk. "Or perhaps I should say, welcome to the headquarters of the Grimori clan in the human world." The direct acknowledgement of their supernatural status marked a shift in approach. No more pretense or coded language, this would be an honest exchange between powers. "Thank you for having me, Grimori-senpai," Issei replied, taking the offered seat. "I appreciate the opportunity for more direct communication." "Kiba, tea please," Rias directed the blonde young man, who nodded and moved to a side table where an elegant tea service waited. "This is Yuto Kiba, my knight," Rias introduced as he prepared the tea with practiced grace. "And you've already passed Kaneko Tuju in the hallways, she's my rook." The chess terminology confirmed what DxD had explained about devil organizational structures. Knights, rooks, bishops, queens, each representing different specialized powers within a devil's peerage. Knight and rook, Issei acknowledged with a respectful nod to each. "Which makes Himahima-san your queen, I presume." "Very good," Rias confirmed, accepting a cup of tea from Kiba. "You've done your research on devil society. My mentor believes understanding political structures is essential to effective interaction," Issei explained, accepting his own cup with a nod of thanks to Kiba. "Though I admit much of my knowledge comes from my partner rather than formal study." "Partner?" Rias inquired, her eyebrow raising slightly. In response, Issei manifested the boosted gear, the red gauntlet materializing around his left arm with a flash of crimson light. The green jewel embedded in the back pulsed once, DxD's presence becoming tangible in the room. "The Red Dragon Emperor," Rias breathed, genuine surprise crossing her features. "That explains part of your unusual energy signature, but not the more distinctive elements we've been sensing." "Greetings, Devil Princess," DxD's voice resonated from the jewel, his tone formal but not unfriendly. "It has been some centuries since I interacted with the Grimori clan." "Heavenly Dragon DxD," Rias acknowledged with respectful inclination of her head. "Your reputation precedes you, though I admit I'm surprised to find you partnered with a student of, what did you call him?" "A god of destruction, Lord Beerus," Issei confirmed, dispelling the sacred gear after DxD's introduction. "He arrived in this world approximately 7 months ago following a dimensional anomaly. He found me shortly thereafter and, for reasons he hasn't fully explained, decided I would make a suitable apprentice." "How fortunate for you," Akeno commented, taking a seat on the sofa arm nearest his chair. The proximity intensified their energy resonance, creating a pleasant hum that both could clearly sense. Her smile indicated she was deliberately exploiting the effect. Being chosen by a deity must be quite the ego boost. "It's more terrifying than flattering," Issei admitted with a rueful smile. "Gods of destruction aren't known for gentle teaching methods. My survival so far has been as much luck as skill. Yet you've clearly thrived under his tutelage," Rias observed, studying him with analytical intensity. "Your energy signature has evolved dramatically and in the short time you've been at Kuo Academy. Particularly in the last week." Issei nodded, seeing no reason to deny the obvious. "My body recently began generating destruction energy internally. rather than merely channeling it as an external force. The transformation was significant and painful, I imagine, Akino interjected, her tone suggesting the concept didn't displease her. Such fundamental changes usually are excruciating, Issei confirmed, meeting her gaze directly. Though pain is relative when you train with a being who can erase solar systems with a gesture. The casual reference to such astronomical destructive capacity sent a visible ripple of tension through the devil group. Even Kaneko paused in her methodical consumption of sweets, golden eyes fixing on Issei with new wariness. You understand why such power operating in devil territory raises concerns, Rias said carefully. The balance between factions is delicate. The sudden appearance of an entity capable of that level of destruction, and now an apprentice developing similar abilities, represents a significant unknown variable. I understand completely, Issei assured her. Which is why I accepted your invitation. Clear communication prevents unfortunate misunderstandings. Then let me be clear, Rias leaned forward, her demeanor shifting from diplomatic to authoritative. What are Lord Beerus's intentions toward the supernatural factions of this world? And by extension, what are yours? The directness of the question deserved an equally direct answer. Issei considered his words carefully, aware that this exchange would establish the foundation for future relations. Lord Beerus has no territorial ambitions in this world or any other in your cosmological system, he stated with confidence. His interest is primarily in training me, exploring your world's cuisine, and eventually finding a way back to his own universe. His role as god of destruction is fundamentally different from the gods of this world. He doesn't seek worship, followers, or political influence. And you, Heba spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the measured cadence of someone trained in formal address. What are your ambitions as his apprentice? I'm still discovering that myself, Issei answered honestly. 7 months ago, I was an ordinary human with ordinary concerns. Now I'm Genera, Ting destruction energy and training with cosmic entities. My immediate goal is mastery over these new abilities. Beyond that, he shrugged, I haven't had much time for long-term planning between survival and adaptation. His candor seemed to resonate with the devil group. Even Kaneko's expression softened marginally. A refreshingly straightforward answer, Rias acknowledged. Though it does, entirely resolve our concerns about the power imbalance your presence creates. Would it help if I agreed to certain operational parameters while in devil territory? Issei offered, implementing one of Whisa's diplomatic strategies, voluntary constraints as trust-building measures. Limitations on power usage, notification protocols for training activities, that sort of thing. Rias's eyes widened slightly, clearly surprised by the proactive suggestion. That would be a constructive approach. Though enforcement would be problematic given the power disparity. My word would be the enforcement, Issei countered. Contrary to popular mythology, not all power corrupts. Some of us value integrity regardless of capability. Akino's musical laugh broke the diplomatic tension. He's what I expected from a destruction apprentice, is he, Rias? More philosopher than conqueror. Balance is essential to proper destruction, Issei explained, echoing one of Beerus's more coherent lessons. Without understanding what you're destroying and why, you're just causing chaos, not fulfilling a cosmic function. Fascinating perspective, Rias mused. Perhaps we could. A sudden tremor interrupted her. The entire building shaking as if struck by an earthquake. Teacups rattled, books tumbled from shelves, and the chandelier swayed dangerously overhead. What truly captured Issei's attention, however, was not the physical disturbance but the accompanying energy wave, a ripple in reality itself that washed over his supernatural senses like static electricity. Dimensional breach. Diedrag's voice resonated in his mind, tension evident even in mental communication. Significant 1. Northwest quadrant of the school grounds. Issei was on his feet instantly, destruction. Energy automatically rising to defensive readiness. The devils responded with similar alacrity, their casual postures replaced by combat alertness. What was that? Heba demanded, a sword materializing in his hand from nowhere. Dimensional disturbance, Rias answered, already moving toward the window. Significant breach in the barrier between realms. Not fallen angels, Akino added, her YFUL demeanor vanishing beneath cold combat assessment. The energy signature is wrong. Too chaotic, too hungry. Another tremor shook the building, stronger than the first. This time, Issei caught the distinctive magical resonance, not just a passive dimensional fluctuation but an active attempt to force reality open from the other side. Something's coming through, he warned, moving to Rias's side at the window. Something large. Quote, the northwestern school grounds, normally occupied by tennis courts and practice fields, rippled like disturbed water. Space itself seemed to fold and distort, colors inverting in nauseating patterns as reality protested the intrusion. At the center of the disturbance, a tear appeared, not metaphorically, but literally a rip in the fabric of existence, edges ragged like torn cloth. Boundary field, now, Rias commanded, her voice carrying absolute authority. Full containment protocol. Akano, alert the C-Tree group. Kiba, evacuation measures for any humans still on campus. As the devils moved with practiced efficiency, Issei extended his senses toward the breach, attempting to identify what pressed against the weakening barrier between worlds. What he felt turned his blood cold. Void energy, he whispered, recognizing the signature from Whisa's dimensional theory's lessons. Something from outside normal space-time, neither matter nor energy as conventionally understood. Can you contain it? Rias asked, crimson destruction power gathering around her hands, the distinctive energy of her bloodline, though fundamentally different from Beerus's Hawkeye. I can try, Issei answered, already calculating approach vectors and energy requirements. But we need to clear the area first. Void entities typically feed on standard matter, the more complex, the better. Human casualties could strengthen it exponentially. The analytical detachment in his voice surprised even him, evidence of how thoroughly Beerus's training had transformed his thought processes. 7 months ago, he would have panicked at interdimensional invasion. Now he assessed threat levels and strategic responses with calm precision. Kaneko, assist Kiba with evacuation, Rias ordered. The small white-haired girl nodding once before disappearing in a burst of enhanced speed. Akano and I will establish the boundary field to prevent human observation and contain the breach. All engage directly, Issei decided, destruction energy gathering around his hands in pulsing violet light. My power type might be effective against void manifestation. At minimum, I can buy time for evacuation. Rias studied him for a heartbeat, clearly reassessing her evaluation of his capabilities. Very well, but maintain communication. If the situation exceeds containment parameters, we retreat and call for reinforcements. No heroic last stands. The pragmatism confirmed Issei's growing respect for the Devil Princess. Despite her youth and beauty, she was fundamentally a straight GIC commander, practical and protective of her assets. Understood, he agreed, then stepped toward the window. I'll approach from above to assess full-dimensional parameters. Without waiting for further discussion, Issei launched himself through the open window, destruction energy propelling him skyward. The violet aura surrounding him pulsed with controlled power as he ascended to a vantage point 300 meters above the disturbance. From this height, the true scope of the breach became apparent. The tear in reality had expanded to nearly 15 meters in diameter, its edges still growing as whatever pressed from the other side continued its efforts. The space around the anomaly had begun to gray out, color and definition leaching away as void energy corrupted normal physics. Careful, partner, DxD cautioned as Issei prepared to descend. Void entities consume energy as readily as matter. Even dragon power can become food for such things. What about destruction energy? Issei asked, summoning the boosted gear to supplement his approach. Unknown. Hawkeye energy isn't native to this reality. The interaction could be unpredictable. Only one way to find out, Issei muttered. Then executed a controlled descent toward the breach. As he approached, the dimensional tear pulsed with sickly light. Something pushed through. A limb of sorts, though, limb. Inadequate described the twisted appendage that emerged. Neither tentacle nor arm, it seemed composed of negative space defined only by the absence of what should be there. It extended impossibly, aching toward the nearest solid matter, a tennis court fence, which crumbled to dust upon contact, the particles flowing into the appendage like water down a drain. Boost. The sacred gear responded to Issei's will, doubling his base power immediately. Enhanced perception revealed more details of the emerging entity, a creature of void and hunger, its form constantly shifting between states of matter and energy. Below, Beerus and Akeno had completed their boundary field. A shimmering dome of crimson and gold energy now encapsulated the northwestern quadrant of campus, isolating the breach from human perception. Within the protected zone, devil magic flared as they established secondary containment measures. Boost. A second enhancement flooded Issei's system as he positioned himself directly above the breach. The void entity had consumed half the tennis court now, growing more substantial with each moment of feeding. Its amorphous body pulsed with stolen energy, and something like a whir. Ines seemed to be developing in its movements, no longer random but increasingly purposeful. Issei extended his right hand, focusing destruction energy into a concentrated sphere. Unlike his usual Hawkeye technique, which targeted specific matter for erasure, this application required adaptation. Void entities existed partly outside conventional reality, destroying them meant affecting the dimension. Aperture itself rather than just their physical manifestation. Boost. The third enhancement hit as Issei completed his mental calculations. With DxD's power amplifying his base abilities and precision control from months of Beerus's training, he shaped destruction energy into a new configuration, a compression field designed to collapse the dimensional tear while simultaneously erasing the void entity. Dimensional Hawkeye, he named the technique, then released the carefully crafted energy sphere downward. The violet light streaked toward the breach like a meteor, trailing otherworldly illumination. When it struck the void entity, reality itself seemed to hiccup. The creature's non-material form contorted, negative space warping as destruction energy interfaced with void essence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entity emitted a sound that existed outside normal acoustics, not heard so much as felt, a vibration that rattled bones and disturbed thought patterns. The void appendages retracted suddenly, pulling back toward the dimensional tear as if burned. It's working, Issei called down to the devils. The Hawkeye energy is forcing it to retreat. He prepared a second attack, focusing more power into his palm. Boost. The fourth enhancement significantly amplified his capabilities, destruction energy glowing with increased intensity around his hand. Before he could release it, however, the void entity changed tactics. Instead of continuing its retreat, it suddenly surged forward with explosive force. Appendages of negative space shot outward in all directions, one of them lancing directly toward Issei with impossible speed. Even with enhanced reflexes, the attack caught him partially. Where the void tendril brushed his leg, sensation simply ceased, not pain, but complete absence. As if that portion of his body had been temporarily removed from reality. Gah! The disorientation sent him tumbling through the air before he could stabilize his flight. Below, he saw Akeno launch a counterattack, lightning of pure golden radiance that struck the void entity with precise targeting. The electricity, rather than damaging the creature, seemed to outline its non-form, defining its boundaries through opposition. Issei. Beerus's voice carried upward. Are you injured? He regained control, hovering with effort as sensation gradually returned to his affected limb. Functional, he called back, assessing the tactical situation with growing concern. The void entity had fully emerged now, its body, if such a term applied, consuming everything it touched. Tennis courts, trees, even sections of ground simply ceased to exist, converted to energy the creature absorbed. Worse, the dimensional tear behind it continued to widen, suggesting more entities might follow. Boost. The fifth enhancement flooded Issei's system with power that strained his control. He needed to end this quickly, before the situation escalated beyond containment. Partner, consider balance breaker. DxD suggested. The situation warrants it. Balance breaker. The evolved form of the boosted gear that sacrificed incremental power increase for immediate full manifestation. Issei had never successfully activated it despite months of trying during training sessions with Beerus. The god of destruction had theorized that Issei's hybrid power system, part dragon, part destruction energy, created complications in the transformation sequence. I've never been able to trigger it, Issei reminded the dragon as he dodged another void tendril. What makes you think I can now? Necessity, genuine threat, and something else. The dragon's voice took on a thoughtful quality. The resonance with the hybrid devil girl has altered your energy flow patterns. The blockage that prevented balance breaker might have shifted. Issei glanced down to where Akeno fought alongside Rias, her lightning creating golden barriers that temporarily contained the void entity's expansion. The resonance between them remained active even at this distance, a harmonic vibration in his energy pathways that felt increasingly natural. Worth trying, he decided, positioning himself for another attack run. Cover me, he called down to the devils. Attempting power escalation. Rias nodded in acknowledgement, crimson destruction magic intensifying around her hands. Akeno, containment pattern beta. Kiba, reinforcement positions. The blonde knight had returned from evacuation duties, joined now by Kaneko. Both took defensive positions at the perimeter, ready to intercept any void tendrils that breached the primary containment zone. Issei closed his eyes briefly, centering himself as Beerus had taught him. The key to balance breaker, according to DxD, lay in perfect synchronization between wielder and dragon, a harmony of intent and power that transcended incremental enhancement. I, who am about to awaken, he began, reciting the chant DxD had vided months ago during training attempts. Power built within him, destruction energy intertwining with dragon essence in complex patterns. Below, the void entity sensed the power concentration and reacted violently. Multiple appendages lashed upward, attempting to disrupt his transformation. Rias and her peerage intercepted the attacks with coordinated precision, crimson destruction magic, golden lightning, and Kiba's light-infused sword creating a defensive perimeter around Issei's position. And the heavenly dragon who has stolen the principles of domination from God, Issei continued, power building exponentially with each word. The red gauntlet on his arm pulsed with increasing brightness, green jewel resonating with the chant. Something was different this time. Where previous attempts had felt forced and mechanical, this activation flowed naturally. The resonance with Akeno's energy somehow provided a stabilizing influence, bridging the gap between destruction power and Dragon Zen's that had previously created conflict. I laugh at the infinite, and I grieve at the dream, he continued, violet crimson light enveloping his body in a cocoon of pure power. I shall become the red dragon of domination. The energy surge peaked, creating a shockwave that momentarily pushed back the void entity's attacks. In that fractional pause, Issei completed the chant with newfound certainty. Balance breaker. Boosted gear scale male. Light exploded outward as dragon power materialized around him. Red armor encased his body from head to toe, each plate seamlessly connected and pulsing with internal energy. Green jewels embedded at key points. Chest, gauntlets, knees, forehead, glowed with concentrated power. Draconic wings of solid crimson light extended from his back, their span nearly 6 meters tip to tip. Balance breaker achieved, DxD announced, his voice resonating from the armor itself rather than just the gauntlet jewel. Scale male manifestation successful. However, the dragon's hesitation was explained by what happened next. As the transformation completed, destruction energy began integrating with the scale male, violet light flowing through the red armor like liquid fire, creating patterns of purple illumination against crimson backdrop. The green jewels shifted hue, taking on an unusual violet-green iridescence that shifted depending on viewing angle. Fascinating, DxD commented. The armor is adapting to incorporate Hawkeye energy. This is unprecedented. Issei flexed experimentally, finding the armor moved as naturally as his own skin. Power, raw and refined simultaneously, coursed through his system with intoxicating potency. The limitations he'd grown accustomed to had vanished, replaced by a sense of capability that bordered on euphoric. Hybrid scale male, he named it, voice resonating with dual harmonic overlay, his natural tone underscored by draconic reverberation. Below, even the devils paused momentarily, struck by the dramatic transformation. Akeno's expression showed particular interest, her energy signature pulsing in harmony with the modified scale male's resonance. The void entity, however, reacted with renewed aggression. Perhaps sensing the increased threat, it launched a full offensive, dozens of negative space appendages striking simultaneously at both Issei and the devil containment team. Within balance breaker, Issei's speed and reaction time multiplied exponentially. What previously appeared as swift attacks now seemed almost leisurely in their approach. He dodged between void tendrils with effortless grace, positioning himself directly above the entity's central mass. Let's test the new configuration, he murmured, extending both armored hands downward. Destruction energy gathered between his palms. But unlike previous manifestations, this Hawkeye sphere contained perfect integration of dragon power. Crimson and violet energies blended into a harmony of destructive potential. Crimson destruction. Extinction ray. He called out, unleashing the combined power in a concentrated beam of violet-red energy. The attack struck the void entity's core with surgical precision. Unlike conventional energy, which the creature consumed, this hybrid power operated on fundamentally different principles. Where the beam touched void matter, reality itself reasserted control. The absence defining the creature replaced by proper spacetime relationships. The entity's silent scream resonated through mental frequencies as its form began collapsing inward. The dimensional tear behind it pulsed erratically, caught between expansion and forced closure as Issei's attack affected the underlying spacetime coordinates. The breach is destabilizing, Rias called up, her analyte. ICAL abilities identifying the critical weakness. Target the anchor points at 3 and 7 o'clock positions. If we sever the dimensional tethers, the whole construct should collapse. Issei adjusted his attack vector accordingly, splitting the extinction ray into dual beams that targeted the specified coordinates. The precision required was extreme, molecular-level accuracy executed across unstable dimensional boundaries, but the balance breaker's enhanced capabilities made it possible. When the beams struck the anchor points, reality rippled like disturbed water. The void entity thrashed desperately, its form rapidly losing coherence as dimensional support failed. The tear itself began contracting, edges pulling inward as natural spacetime reasserted dominance. It's working, Kiba called, sword raised in readiness despite the positive development. The breach is closing. Issei maintained attack pressure, adjusting power output to manage the dimensional collapse rate. Too fast, and the resulting spacetime snap could cause secondary ruptures. Too slow, and the entity might stabilize or escape. Akeno, he called down, acting on intuition, can you synchronize your lightning with my attack? The resonance pattern might accelerate closure. She responded immediately, golden lightning arcing upward to intertwine with his extinction ray. As predicted, their energy signature synchronized with harmonic perfection, creating a reinforcing wave pattern that systematically erased void matter while strengthening natural dimensional boundaries. The void entity gave one final, silent convulsion before collapsing entirely. Its negative space body imploded, pulling remaining fragments back through the rapidly shrinking dimensional tear. Within seconds, the breach sealed completely, reality knitting itself back together with only a faint iridescent shimmer marking the former rupture site. Silence fell over the containment zone. Issei descended slowly, the hybrid scale Ale maintaining full manifestation as he touched down beside the devil team. That, Rias said after a moment of stunned evaluation, was not the power demonstration I expected when inviting you to our club meeting. Despite the tension of battle, laughter bubbled up within Issei's chest. The absurdity of the situation, interdimensional invasion interrupting what should have been a simple diploma. Discussion, struck him as darkly amusing. When his laughter escaped through the armor's vocal modulators, it carried draconic overtones that should have been intimidating but somehow conveyed genuine mirth instead. Sorry about that, he managed, the scale male's faceplate retracting to reveal his normal features. First successful balance breaker tends to be dramatic, apparently. Dramatic doesn't begin to cover it, Akeno commented, moving closer to examine the hybrid armor with undisguised fascination. Her fingers traced the violet energy patterns flowing through crimson plating, sending pleasant resonance vibrations through Issei's system. This combination of dragon and destruction energy is extraordinary. And convenient, given the circumstances, Rias added, her tactical mind already processing implications. The void entity would have been significantly more problematic without your unique energy configuration. About that, Kiba interjected, sheathing his sword as immediate danger passed. What exactly was that thing? I've never encountered anything similar in Devil records. Void manifestation, Issei explained, remembering Whisa's dimensional theory lessons. Entities that exist in the spaces between realities. Not alive in conventional terms, but possessing purpose and hunger. He gestured toward the former breach location. The concerning part isn't the entity itself, but the dimensional instability that allowed it through. This isn't the first such incident, Rias revealed, confirming Issei's suspicions about devil awareness of the situation. Similar breaches have been detected worldwide over the past 3 months, though none so significant within Japanese territory. The frequency is increasing, Kaneko added, her normally expressionless face showing subtle concern. This makes 17 documented incursions in the past week alone. Issei frowned, connecting this information with DxD's earlier comments about dimensional instability. The barriers between realities are weakening systematically, not just randomly fluctuating. Which brings us back to your god of destruction, Beerus said carefully. His arrival coincides with the beginning of these phenomena. Is there connection? Possibly, Issei acknowledged honestly. Beerus traveled here through dimensional disruption rather than conventional teleportation. The thought may have created weaknesses in reality's structural integrity that are progressively deteriorating. Or something else is exploiting the initial disruption, Akeno suggested, her playfulness placed by analytical sharpness that reminded Issei she was more than just a flirtatious school idol. These incursions feel increasingly targeted, not random dimensional failures. The observation aligned with Issei's own growing concerns. The void entity's behavior had seemed purposeful, not merely feeding on available matter but actively seeking specific targets. We should discuss this with Lord Beerus when he returns from Kyoto, Issei decided, and with your new Valkyrie teacher. Interdimensional threats fall under multiple jurisdictions. Beerus's eyebrow raised slightly. You've noticed Roswise-sensei's true nature, then. Quote, hard to miss, Issei replied with a small smile. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow to discuss ethics. I suspect dimensional stability will feature prominently in the conversation. The political landscape grows more complex by the day, Beerus mused, surveying the damaged school grounds. Devils, dragons, gods of destruction, Valkyries, and now void entities. She sighed, then straightened with renewed authority. Akeno, begin restoration procedures for the affected area. Kiba, Kaneko, perimeter security until we confirm no residual dimensional weaknesses. As her peerage moved to execute orders, Beerus turned back to Issei. Your assistance today was significant. Whatever political complications your presence creates, your combat capability is undeniably valuable. Coming from the territorial devil princess, this represented substantial acknowledgement. Issei inclined his head in appreciation of both the recognition and its diplomatic implications. Perhaps we can continue our discussion once the immediate situation is addressed, he suggested. The operational parameters we were considering before the interruption seem even more relevant now. Agreed, Beerus confirmed, though I suggest including Sona Citri in future discussions. As co-administrator of this territory and the actual student council president, she has legitimate interest in these developments. Quote, another devil noble, then. The political web expanded further. As you recommend, Issei agreed. Though I should probably deactivate this first. He gestured to the still manifested scale mail. Maintaining balance breaker during diplomatic discussions might send the wrong message. A musical laugh drew his attention to Akeno, who had paused in her restoration work to observe their exchange. I don't know, she teased, violet eyes twinkling with mischief. The armor has a certain appeal. Very dominant. The suggestive tone sent unexpected warmth through Issei's system. The resonance between them pulsed in response, dragon power harmonizing with her hybrid energy in ways that created pleasant feedback loops through his nervous system. Perhaps for combat situations only, he managed, focusing on the deactivation sequence DxD had theoretically explained but he'd never actually implemented. The scale mail dissolved in motes of crimson and violet light, leaving Issei in his somewhat tattered school uniform. The energy expenditure hit him immediately. Balance breaker's power came with corresponding cost once deactivated. His legs wobbled slightly as fatigue washed through his system. First manifestation drain, he explained, steadying himself against a nearby undamaged bench. Apparently it takes practice to manage the power transition efficiently. You should rest, Beerus advised, her tone shifting from diplomatic to genuinely concerned. First balance breaker is notoriously taxing, even for experienced wielders. The hybrid nature of yours likely compounds the effect. Issei nodded, acknowledging the wisdom while calculating recovery timelines. I should be functional within a few hours. Destruction energy accelerates healing, fortunately. Allow me to assist, Akeno offered, approaching with golden lightning dancing between her fingertips. My energy appears compatible with yours. A small infusion might accelerate recovery. Before Issei could respond, she placed her palm against his chest. Golden electricity flowed from her hand into his body, not painful but intensely stimulating. Where her energy touched his, the resonance they'd discovered magnified exponentially, creating pathways of enhanced recovery throughout his system. That's, he gasped, unprepared for the intimate sensation of her power flowing through him. Extremely effective. Akeno's smile held knowing amusement as she maintained the connection several seconds longer than strictly necessary. Compatibility has its advantages, she murmured, finally withdrawing her hand. Remember that for future collaborations. The suggestive undertone wasn't lost on Issei, nor apparently on Rias, whose expression showed complex calculation beneath her composed exterior. Thank you for your assistance today, Hyodo-kun, the Devil Princess said formally, reclaiming the diplomatic framework. We'll contact you regarding follow-up discussions once restoration is complete. Quote, the dismissal was polite but clear. Internal devil matters required attention without outside observation. Issei nodded in understanding. Of course, I should report these developments to Lord Beerus anyway. He bowed respectfully to Rias, then turned to Akeno. Thank you for the energy assistance, Himahima-senpai. It was illuminating. Era, so formal now. Akeno teased. After such intimate energy exchange. Call me Akeno, Issei-kun. I think we're well past honorifics. The deliberate informality established new relationship parameters, a subtle but significant shift in their developing dynamic. Issei found himself smiling in response, destruction energy pulsing pleasantly beneath his skin. Until next time, Akeno, he acknowledged, accepting the offered intimacy. Try not to start any interdimensional incidents without me. Her delighted laugh followed him as he departed the containment zone, making his way toward the school boundar. Where he could take flight without observation. Despite fatigue from balance breaker manifestation, his steps felt lighter than before, energized by successful combat, political progress, and the lingering resonance of Akeno's power within his system. That one is dangerous in ways beyond her power level, DxD commented once they were airborne, heading toward the mountain training ground. The resonance between you creates vulnerability as well as strength. I know, Issei acknowledged. But there's something there worth exploring. The way our energies interact is unlike anything I've experienced, even with Beerus's power. Because it's complementary rather than instructional, the dragon explained. Beerus shapes your power from outside. The hybrid devil's energy naturally enhances yours from within. The difference is significant. Issei contemplated this as they soared above Kuo town toward the mountains beyond. The void entity attack had transformed what should have been a simple political meeting into something far more complex. Combat alliance, power demonstration, and perhaps the beginning of something more personal with Akeno. The dimensional instabilities concern me more immediately, he said, refocusing on strategic priorities. If they're increasing in frequency and severity as the devils suggested, then something fundamental is changing in reality's structure. DxD finished for him, potentially related to Beerus's arrival, potentially independent. Either way, the convergence of multiple supernatural factions around this phenomenon suggests escalation. And tomorrow I meet with a Valkyrie to discuss ethics, Issei added with rueful amusement. My life has become absurdly complicated in 7 short months. Better than being ordinary, is it not? The dragon asked, genuine curiosity in his mental tone. You sought power and purpose. Both have found you in abundance. Issei couldn't argue with that assessment. As complicated, dangerous, and occasionally terrifying as his new reality had become, he wouldn't trade it for his former ordinary existence. The transformation wasn't just physical. His mind, his perspective, his very understanding of reality had expanded beyond what his former self could have comprehended. The mountain training ground appeared below, its familiar terrain offering welcome stability amid rapidly evolving circumstances. Issei descended toward the plateau where he typically met Beerus and Whis, unsurprised to find the blue attendant waiting with his ever-present staff and knowing smile. Void incursion, balance breaker manifestation, and energy resonance synchronization with a hybrid devil, was summarized before Issei could speak. Quite the productive afternoon. You were watching. Issei asked, though he should have known better. Very little escaped Whis' awareness. Observing, the attendant corrected. Direct intervention would have been inappropriate given your demonstrated capability. The hybrid scale male is particularly interesting, a configuration I've not previously encountered in any cosmological system. Issei landed beside him, fatigue R.E. turning now that immediate challenges had passed. Is Lord Beerus still in Kyoto? Indeed, he discovered something called Mitarashi Dango, and has declared it worthy of preservation should he ever decide to destroy this world. Whis' tone made it impossible to determine whether the statement was joke or genuine threat. However, I suspect he'll return shortly given these developments. Dimensional instabilities of this magnitude will interest him greatly. Do you think his arrival caused them? Issei asked directly, trusting Whis' analytical perspective more than anyone else's on this matter. The attendant's expression turned thoughtful. Caused? No. Exacerbated? Potentially. Our transit between universes required significant energy expenditure, which may have created structural weaknesses in dimensional boundaries. He tapped his staff against the ground, producing a complex holographic display of intersecting reality planes. However, the pattern of increasing incursions suggests deliberate exploitation rather than natural deterioration. Meaning something is intentionally widening the gaps, Issei concluded, studying the holographic model with trained eye. 7 months. Under Whis' occasional instruction had given him rudimentary understanding of multidimensional physics. Using the initial weaknesses as access points. Precisely. Whis gestured with his staff, IGH lighting several intersection points in the model. The void entity you encountered today was merely a scout, a probe testing defensive capabilities and resistance patterns. The implication sent cold dread through Issei's system. You're saying this was reconnaissance for something larger? Almost certainly, Whis confirmed with academic detachment that belied the ominous content. The dimensional breach patterns suggest systematic evaluation rather than random exploitation. Something intelligent is coordinating these incursions. The Devils mentioned similar breaches worldwide, Issei added. 17 documented incidents just this week. Accelerating, Whis noted with raised eyebrow. Faster than my models predicted. Most concerning. Issei sank onto a nearby boulder, mental and physical fatigue combining as the implications expanded in his consciousness. So we're potentially facing coordinated interdimensional invasion by void entities or whatever controls them. Dimensional instability is increasing globally. And multiple supernatural factions are converging around Kuo Town specifically. An admirably succinct summary, Whis approved with a small smile. To which, we might add, you've achieved balance breaker with unprecedented hybrid configuration, established preliminary alliance with the local devil faction, and developed significant resonance with a being whose energy naturally complements destruction power. Put that way, the situation sounded almost promising rather than apocalyptic. Issei couldn't help but laugh at the cognitive dissonance. When you phrase it like that, it sounds like everything's proceeding according to some cosmic plan. Whis' smile turned enigmatic. The multiverse operates in patterns beyond conventional comprehension, Issei Hyodo. Coincidence and destiny often appear indistinguishable from sufficient perspective. The cryptic philosophy was typical of Whis when discussing cosmic matters. Issei had learned that pressing for clarification typically resulted in even more abstract explanations. What should I do about tomorrow's meeting with the Valkyrie? He asked instead, focusing on immediate practicalities. Given these developments, the conversation will obviously extend beyond academic ethics. Be honest but diplomatic, Whis advised. Asgardians value direct communication but respect political necessities. Rossweiss specifically was chosen for this assignment because of her analytical capabilities and diplomatic experience as Odin's former bodyguard. Former, Issei repeated, catching the temporal qualifier. Recent developments in Asgardian politics have altered her status, Whis explained vaguely. The specifics are hers to share if she chooses. Another layer of complexity in an already labyrinthine situation. Issei sighed, leaning back against a convenient boulder. 7 months ago, my biggest worry was whether I'd ever get a girlfriend. Now I'm navigating interdimensional politics while training with a destruction deity and fighting void entities. And manifesting hybrid dragon armor while establishing resonance with a devil fallen angel hybrid, Whis added helpfully. Quote, your circumstances have indeed evolved dramatically. Evolution or escalation? Issei wondered aloud. Both. Whis answered simply. Rest now. Tomorrow brings new challenges requiring full capability. As if on command, exhaustion washed over Issei in an irresistible wave. Whether natural fatigue or Whis' subtle influence, the result was the same, consciousness receding as his body demanded recovery from the day's extraordinary exertions. His last thought before sleep claimed him was of Akeno, violet eyes sparkling with dangerous playfulness, golden energy resonating with his destruction power in harmonies that promised both peril and possibility. Tomorrow would bring Valkyries, void entities, and further complications. But for now, the apprentice of destruction slept beneath the watchful gaze of a celestial attendant from another universe, destruction energy pulsing beneath his skin in violet rhythms that matched the deepening twilight. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.